Are we ready?
I'm taking some, not some.
Yes, you are. Call this meeting to order. It is 6:31 p.m. I'd like to open the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Fisher,
Here.
Trustee Hunter is excused. Trustee Check.
Here.
Trustee Foster. Here. Trustee Ostrander. Here. Trustee Brown.
Here.
The other form.
Thank you. Before I move on to approval of the agenda, there is one item that is going to be removed from the action. That is item number 2, Citizens of a Healthy Community Invitation, Natasha Letcher. She had to withdraw due to scheduling conflict. She will be here in the next meeting to fill us in. So I will need a motion if everyone's okay with that. To on the agenda. The amended agenda, removing that. If there's nothing else in the agenda that needs to be changed.
I'll move to approve the agenda with the removal of the Citizens for Healthy Community presentation.
All in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion carries. For announcements right now, I would like to give our town parks a huge kudos and thank you for their work through Cherry Days and the BMW rally. There were nothing but compliments about how the park looked, about the service of our parks people. And that's Rodney, Cole and Bailey. They have worked well. The equipment that we authorized them to buy, the mower with all the attachments they have been using, and it has made all the difference. So we have beautiful parks again, and I wanted to recognize those 3 people, and Cole specifically during Cherry Days and the BMW rally. He was there spot on whenever we needed anything. He was there, any issue on it, and I just wanted to say thank you. What is it? Does anyone else, any trustees have an announcement? Okay, then we shall move on to public comment. We are now at the public comment portion of our meeting. If there's anyone in the audience or on Zoom that would like to speak on any topic not on the agenda, please raise your hand as this is your opportunity to do so. I will call you up, state your name, whether you live in town or out of town, write your name on the sheet on the podium for the record, and you have 3 minutes to address the board on any topic not on the agenda. Hi, would you like to be first?
Yes.
Come on up.
All right. I'm gonna do that when I'm done. I'm Jess Durbin Ackerman. I live in town, and I am the vice president of the North Fork Valley Chamber of Commerce Board. And yesterday I was seated as a member of One Delta County's board, and I would love to invite Paonia to have a new representative on the One Delta County board. Stefan was the previous representative, and there has not been a new one appointed, I believe, from the board or from the town to represent our town there. And it would be wonderful to see Paonia represented. One Delta County is our county's economic development corporation, so there's a lot of conversations around our economy and emerging sectors and places we need to invest in, to help our folks have good paying jobs and to help our industries here. So would love to see Paonia at the table as well.
And who would we contact for that?
Patrick Dunstone is the new executive director. He just took over in the last few months from the previous executive director, Greg Pope. And the board, the One Delta County Board is going through a strategic planning process in the next 3 months. So it would be good timing to have somebody there representing Paonia. And Kim States is the new representative from Hotchkiss, the town administrator, and she just attended her first meeting yesterday as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, how are y'all doing? My name is Rebecca Corona, I live in town. Let me put my name here real quick for you. Not really hard of hearing, but in this room, for some reason, it would be so amazing if you had better microphones so we could hear the individual people speak back here, and even people that are on the podium. You cannot hear because their voice is going this way and there's no speaker system back here so that we can hear better microphones, better speakers, so that we can all understand everything that everybody's saying. Because it's really important as a community member for me to understand what you guys are talking about up here instead of sitting there like, what did you say? And then I get in trouble for talking during the time. So if you guys could maybe look into something like that or let us know if it's possible, put something new in here so that our meetings could be a little more understanding for all of us. Okay.
Absolutely, yes.
All right,
Thank you very much.
What did you say?
Is there anybody else that would like to come up and talk on any item not on the agenda? Is there anyone on Zoom that I'm missing, Sam? Thank you. Okay. All right, my trustees, are there any changes or questions on any item in the consent agenda?
To accuse myself from the vote on the license for picking in the park and not harvest festival. I do the marketing communications for both of those, so I directly financially benefit. So I can wait or go, do I go now?
Yes, wait, Sam, clear better.
Are you just on the board?
No,
I make money.
Financial.
Yeah,
so we're gonna have to talk with our town attorney about this one, because if you recuse yourself, we don't have a quorum and we can't make a decision on these, and picking at the park starts before our next meeting. So I'm not. Yeah, so Attorney Buckner is on. So,
yeah, I can explain my relationship a little further. I'm a contractor that works for the nonprofit that puts on both of those events, and I'm contracted specifically for the marketing and communications for both of those. It's, you know, it's not thousands of dollars, but it is money, so.
Do you directly benefit from the event itself, or you contract as just a marketing agent?
I'm contracted as a marketing agent, and a part of my scope is to market those events.
There is an exception in the statute that allows, even if what you're talking about is really a personal. I know, I think you've already been hired and you're already doing this job, correct?
Yes.
Do you stand to make any more financial gain if this is approved, or have you already been?
No,
Made?
I have hours, like some hours to claim.
Oh, it's an hourly. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a very attenuated financial connection. You know, you also have a personal interest in it, obviously, because you're marketing it. I think if you think you can be objective, I would just state on the record that you can be objective in your decision and we will invoke the exception that even with a possible conflict of interest, we would be without a quorum and unable to make decisions as a board on the matter and move forward. The statute allows for that exception in this situation.
Okay. I believe that I can be unbiased.
So we'll invoke the exception that we would lack a quorum, but for your participation, and I just advise if the board is comfortable to move on.
Thank you very much. Trustees, are you comfortable?
Yeah.
Okay, as am I, so in that case. Picking in the Park Mountain Harvest Fest special event liquor licenses, does anyone have any concerns about that? How about disbursements? Okay. And then I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Should approve the consent agenda as is.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And the motion passes. Up next is our town administrator's son. A report. Please.
Are there any questions on anything I put in my memo on this?
Yes, I have several questions. Could we take it letter by letter?
Sure. I could, for people who haven't read it, I could just say something.
That'd be great.
The first item is the Western Loop project. And we, staff and I met with representatives of Respect, the engineering firm of this project, and discussed changing the layout slightly in terms of, in some places, they had moved the easement, so it would require us to get a brand new easement for property owners. And we asked them to make changes if possible to put the water line back in the existing easement. And I think we've achieved that with one or two properties now. We also visited with the county and they asked us to move the water line to the other side of the road in one place. By doing that, we also solved issues with two more properties. So we're headed in the right direction.
Thank you so much for looking into that and addressing it. Have we made any progress on understanding the cost of this particular project to date?
The cost of the project today is all engineering costs because we haven't let the bids up. And I do have a number for what the engineering is. I don't have it with me today, but I think it's about $160,000.
Yeah, going forward, I'm hoping we can include some more data on the financial outlay to date and the services provided for that outlay.
I figured it out for this one and also for the raw water monitoring project.
Thank you. I have no further questions on this item.
Anybody else? Okay.
The next item, Trustee Ostrander and I worked on a resolution to establish a data center moratorium. And the agenda was published before we had a chance to get it on the agenda, so the plan is that it will return on the next regular meeting to be presented to the board. And one of the things it does by having a moratorium is we have in there that the moratorium would last till the end of December of 27. And that would give us time to do the research necessary to see how we want to regulate things like this, whether we want to move to banning them in the area, different things like that. But I think as more and more communities deal with these things, there's going to be a lot more information out there in terms of how to regulate them, stop them if you want to do that. Because one of the big problems that happens with these is they demand a lot of water. We don't have a lot of water to do. So I think that alone is going to be a big contention as we work through the moratorium. And I hope that this is something that the board will consider passing in order to give us the time it takes to research this issue.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Administrator Sund. And Trustee Ostrander. Work that you guys are doing on.
Yeah, that was brought to my attention by some citizens, and so I'm happy that we're able to be proactive on it at this point in time.
Next item is our 2 million gallon tank rehabilitation project. That is done. And so we recently advertised that we're looking to close out the project. The reason you do that at the end of a project is to ensure that if there's subcontractors out there who feel they weren't treated fairly or weren't paid, they have the opportunity to come forward and go after the performance bond that the contractor refuses to pay them. So it's part of a public process, but it's really a good thing to do because we don't want any subcontractor to get stuck out there owed money and not getting money. And we're just about at the end of the advertising period. We knew about 2 subcontractors that were having problems getting paid, and I contacted both of them so that they knew that in case they didn't see the advertisement, that they could still have a solution here if it's necessary. One of them called me back and said that he was paid in full. So that helps.
Thank you for being so professional with that and closing it out and following up with the subs so that they had a chance to get their money.
Thank you. Lee's Trailer Court, and we're looking at putting in water main service lines and meter replacement. And that project is being funded through a Water Smart grant. But when I look at the application we submitted, it appears that we were planning originally to do this project in-house with our employees as the labor to do the construction project. I've never done anything like that before because I always figure the people who are working for you all have jobs. And having them stop doing their jobs and start doing a construction project will bring the whole town to its knees if we try to do that, especially in something like water where we have such a distributed system that people have to go all over the place too. So my plans at this point, and I'm recommending this, that we contract with an engineering firm to design the project because it has not been designed. And then bid the project and hopefully get it done under this grant program. The grant pays for about 49% of the cost, and we pay for 51%. It's the lines in that area are not in very good shape, and the meters right now are under the trailers. So it makes it almost impossible to go in and read the meters, get the information as easy as we could. And we're going to probably have to discuss this with the granting agency, so what we're doing. And I got a call from a woman representing them a few days ago, I guess. And so I have a contact now.
How much will the new proposal increase cost? Do we have a sense yet?
We don't know yet because it hasn't been designed, so I don't. If you just. If you do a project and you count only the materials, it looks way less expensive than some of them count the hours of employees and the labor.
How
So
was this project previously costed?
I think it doesn't really say in the application, but just the way it reads, it's pretty clear that we are planning to do it. So I have to find out how much of it is materials and how much of it's labor, and it doesn't really say that in the application.
Oh, we were awarded money for it?
We were awarded money. So,
Is there an expiration time on that? We've already got it, it's locked in.
we already have it, but granting agencies like to have you do the work as quick as possible. And they understand most of the time, especially with granting agencies that are government, they understand that delays happen because they run into them all the time. But they also appreciate it when you get the project done. We're in the process of getting a new water fountain up in the hallway there, and it will have a bottle filler too. So that'll help. And it's refrigerated. So no hot water. And we learned today that the company we awarded the bid to, he has ordered the unit as soon as it comes in. He will be putting it in.
Thank you so much. That has been a point of public duress for quite some time.
Was mine too, always walking by it every day and seeing that it says not in order, so. I like to drink water, so it's good. I drink this stuff when I can't find it. 2027 budget, the department heads and I have been working on it. One of the things that is not in any of the budgets that was suggested being added to it is adding a line item for fuel. That won't increase the budget, it just, we're paying for it now anyway. It's just that it would be nicer to be able to track what fuel costs are and glance at it quickly and find out how much we're spending on various fuels. So we're looking at adding that to the budget.
I appreciate that. When I worked for a very large city and county in California, when we instituted that practice, we ended up saving $10 million in fuel costs every year. Not that we have that much fuel use.
I don't think I'm gonna save that much money.
But we could save some.
Okay. We learned recently that there's several houses in town that have septic tanks, even though there's a sewer line reasonably close to most of them. And it appears they were allowed to put in septic tanks because the town didn't have a sewer line in the area when they were constructed. But the sewer line was put in like 2 or 3 years later. And that goes back pretty close to 50 years, maybe longer than 50 years. So one of the things that I think the town should consider doing is waiving the sewer connection fee so that we can talk these people into putting in sewer to the main. That's not an inexpensive project. My guess is it's in the $7,000 to $10,000 range to put a sewer line in. But at the same time, I looked up the codes for septic tanks in Colorado, and the state does not have an acreage limit or acreage minimum, but Delta County does. Delta County says 1 acre. These lots are not anywhere near an acre. There's ways to get around an acre, but it takes going back to what state rules are in public health and environment, where they make you do a test where you take a post hole digger, dig a hole in the ground 2 or 3 feet, fill it with water and see how long it takes the water to run back out. So if the soil can handle it, that's called a perk test. And that is the way the state regulates septic systems, is based on how well they function. But one of the things that they don't necessarily know about is in this area, water probably likes to get to the creeks and the irrigation channels and rivers that pretty quickly. Because you probably don't go very far underground before you hit gravel that's actually the river. And so that's something that is a problem with septic tanks. And also, a lot of people may not know they even have a septic tank. They may not have been told that when they bought the home, if they bought it after the house was constructed. And even if they do know, most people don't know how to operate them, because in a sense, you're running your own wastewater treatment system. And for a family living in a house, the general rule is that you have to pump a septic tank out at least every 3 years, because it fills with inorganic stuff that doesn't break down. And if it fills too much, then the water can't get to the drain field very well, and in fact, the stuff that's in the tank will move into the drain field and flood it. So it just becomes problem on top of problem if you're maintaining the system right. So even if people have them, we need to give them instruction how to maintain them if we're going to let them keep. But again, if we can do something to incentivize them to connect to the sewer, that's by far the best solution. Questions?
Is this something we could ask you to put in the parking lot for next time to bring a proposal for a course of action?
We are planning on putting it also on the next work session and then the next meeting.
Right.
So I want to get some more information so I can get it to you.
I think having an alternative is good as well, if people are not able to. Okay. And about how many houses is it?
Just a second, I'm counting it by grand.
I would guess about
5,
15.
10, 15, 20-ish. Oh,
So at $5,000 to $7,000 a piece.
Well, it used to be 7 a while back, so it's probably more than that now.
And are they all kind of in the same area, like a couple blocks?
Sewers.
That's also problematic, but there's that like amount of concentration.
Mhm. In some cases, there's some big trees on the properties, and that's a benefit because trees like water, so they may be soaking, as much up as they can.
So bit.
And then we may have a grant opportunity through the RAP project. Are you familiar with that project? It studied the watershed for pre-fire and post-fire conditions and how we plan to deal with those. If we can get a grant through this program to be proactive and, lacking a better word, hardening our springs so that they are not as fire prone, would be a good thing for us. And we're improving 4 of them now. I have to find out if that's what we're doing to it, just to make sure that we're dealing with a fire perspective here, because it's real. I'm sure all of you saw where we've been experiencing fires from lightning quite a bit lately. And there's the potential for one of those not being able to be stopped quickly. So it's something that's a very real danger here. And if we can do something to make our springs better able to resist the fire, that's even better.
Thank you, and I'd just like to thank Jake Carter, who's been leading that effort with the Western Slope Conservation Center and bringing that opportunity to us. We might be able to get some funding. Thank you for looking into it.
In the packet, we've also placed the financial report for the first 6 months of this year. So if you, I'm not going to go through it line item by line item, it's a big report. But some of the things that we can point out is we have a pretty substantial cash balance in the CIP fund, so we're going to be coming to you with some capital projects purchases in the near future, and the amount in the budget does not cover what I know these costs are going to be. Like, for instance, I think there's 50,000 in there for the roof for this building, and it's going to cost substantially more. We have computers throughout the staff. Some of them are probably 16 or 17 years old and are not functioning very well anymore. And we need to replace them. We saw two different quotes, one from the provider of our IT services, and then also we reached out to Dell, and actually they came back with a quote that was $10,000 less. But it's still gonna be a lot of money. And we have like 15,000 budgeted for computers, which wouldn't get us very far. So I'll be coming back to you with some recommendations in the near future. And we have those capital purchases on an upcoming budget or upcoming meeting. So I just wanted to let you know. And again, please take a look at this report, and I'd be happy to sit down with you and talk about what's in it and what's not in it, and how it's organized.
Yeah, I'm wondering if, having spent some time now with our budgeting system, if you have any recommendations for how we might make it a little easier to read track codes back to spending.
These computer reports sometimes are not as clear to read as it would be nice to do. But they also include the balance, excuse me. They include all of the cash balances, not just the revenues and expenditures. But they go back several years, which sometimes that gets a little confusing and hard to read for people. And we can take this information and produce reports that are just dealing with this year's budget. Once you're in the middle of managing it, it's easier just to read what's happening real and how that compares to the budget. So
Well, we'll take your recommendations on it.
okay.
Yeah.
All I have.
I just would like to say thank you publicly for doing more on the Western Loop project than we've seen happen in a long time. And clearing up a lot of residents' concerns and really streamlining that process. The amount you've gotten done on that West Loop project in the last 2 weeks is, I think, more than we've gotten done in about a year plus. So thank you so much for coming in and really getting that project back up on its feet. Very much.
Good. Let's move on to public hearing. I will now open the public hearing on the application submitted by Carl E. Bird Foundation for rezoning of the property located at 218 4th Street, Pioneer, Colorado, 81428, from Public District to Community Commercial District, C2. The purpose of the hearing is to provide a public forum for all interested parties who wish to comment on these applications before the Board of Trustees. The procedure for the public hearing will be as follows. First, all documents, including the denial, are included in the packet. Next, there will be a 5-minute presentation by the applicant. After these 2 presentations, we will allow members of the public to speak for up to 5 minutes. All testimony must be presented at the lectern after you give your full name and address, and I swear you in. Please do not repeat points made by others, but it is fine to say that you agree or disagree with a comment previously made. Please direct all your comments to the Board of Trustees and not to the town staff or the applicant. After receiving public comments, we will allow the applicant and town staff an opportunity to respond and answer any questions raised by the public comment. Public comments. I will then turn the matter over to the Board of Trustees, and the trustees may ask questions of anyone who testified. We generally will not ask questions during the presentations. Finally, I will close the public hearing and the Board of Trustees will discuss the matter and may take some kind of action. Once the public hearing has closed, no further comment from the applicant or public will be taken. However, the Board of Trustees may ask for advice from the town attorney. Public hearings are recorded for the public record. Clerk Vetter, do we have proper notification? Do any commission members have any disclosures? No conflicts of interest? Okay. Would the town administrator like to add anything else in addition to the information already included in the packet? And staff?
Yeah, so I was gonna do a brief overview of what's going on. And I would like to make a small correction. There was no denial as part of this. It was Ms. Stephena in the script fixing other things. So there is no denial. That's okay. Wasn't your fault. It wasn't your fault. It's what you were given. So the short vision of this and the next application are entwined. They're about the same property and the rezoning has to take place in order for the special use review, which is coming after this, to be allowed. So basically, the whole movement is that we're not. The Delta County School District DC 50, represented by the Berg Foundation, is asking to take the VOTEC from P, which is public leased, to C2, which is community commercial. And the reason they're doing that is because they would like to put a museum, education center, and a bunch of other things get attached to that as well, which they'll speak to in that space, which requires a special use review for C2, but it's the only district it's allowed in. So the two are tied. We're going to focus first on the rezoning because that's the order things have to go. So there are three main requirements for rezoning. The first one is the amendment is not averse to the public health, safety, and welfare. The applicant's request is reasonable and does not appear to adversely affect the public health, safety, and welfare as the town's response. And the amendment is in substantial conformity with the master plan, or the existing zoning is erroneous, or conditions in the area affected have changed materially since the area was last zoned. So I would say the applicant's request is compatible with the current comprehensive master plan. And on the second page of the report, if you're following along, there are three policies that were pulled out by staff to discuss this. So the first one is policy LU11, which prioritizes development that activates vacant spaces and rejuvenates blighted properties. And this facility has been either or underused for a very long time, years. Policy LU13 encourages infill and redevelopment within the town's existing limits and where infrastructure and services already exist. This would do that as well. Policy Econ 5 focuses on encouraging new compatible commercial businesses to build at or relocate in the Paonia downtown core commercial area. And this is not in that area. This is just south of that area, but it does mesh into those specific goals. After that, there's the specifics of the zoning code. The short version is that property meets all of those requirements to be zoned to C2. The applicant provided all the documentation required for this. And based on review of the comprehensive plan, the zoning code, and applicant materials, staff recommends approval of RZ 2026-01 to rezone 218 4th Street from public use to community commercial. It's supported by the following findings. The rezoning supports Paonia's comprehensive plan goals related to rejuvenating existing properties and encouraging locally owned businesses that provide Paonia with unique experiences. Rezoning does not adversely affect adjacent residential or commercial properties and preserves neighborhood compatibility. The rezoning opens the opportunity for a unique cultural addition to the town. So this was heard by the zoning board of adjustments and appeals and planning commission. Thank you. This was heard by the planning commission. It was approved unanimously. There were no follow-up questions about the zoning issue. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Are there any other staff comments on the rezoning? Is there anyone online? Like better, but I can't see. Thanks, America. No, okay, thank you. Would the applicant or the applicant's representative please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record and take the oath.
Andy Philibris. I'm the CEO of the Carly Berg Education Foundation. My address is 14618 Peony Lane, Paonia, 81428.
Thank you, and do you promise to tell the truth in this matter?
I do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. First of all, this is an enormous, I think, opportunity for our foundation as well as the community. Huge thanks to the trustees, the town administration, Athena, Sam have been hugely helpful. Kirk Clay, deputy superintendent. We've worked through a lot of issues with that building. The Delta County School Board has been on board and extremely helpful. Tom Parco, our amazing consultant who put the application together, unfortunately, he was unable to be here for a family emergency. But he's done basically all the applications that I'll be presenting today. My wife, of course, who had to leave, who tolerates me, and most importantly, the citizens of Paonia. So, all right, Ruben, I'm gonna see if I can do this. Okay, so what we're talking about in this first part is a change of zone application. This is the property that you can see in red here. It's bound by 4th Street, 5th Street, and Grand. The red area is one of 4 lots that, and this lot 1, as we'll see, is the one that's being considered for purchase. This is a higher magnification. You can see the area is landscaped with some grass, thus requiring some irrigation that we've worked out with the school, the building itself, and then the parking lot here and here. Little higher view, these are the 4 lots that the school owns. This is lot 1 that we're considering to purchase. Lot 2 has the Nexus School, has the pump and all the utility machinery. Lot 3 is the school, and this is a lot 4. It has a basketball court and some other great recreational things for the kids. We are absolutely enthralled that we're right next to a school, especially for our purposes. We're 2 blocks away or so from the park. We're right off Grand. We feel this is an amazing opportunity for our foundation and the community. This is just a higher, more of a survey plot. There is an easement here that's being abandoned. We worked that out with the school. And this slide is important primarily because it shows the 2018 zoning map of Paonia. And you can see the green areas are zoned public. So the city park and all of these lots that the school owns. For purposes of a museum, and we are not a public entity, we are a 401, a 501c3 private foundation. There's not much we can do with the property without getting it rezoned first. So it's key that in order for us to obviously purchase the property, there's a requirement for us to get it rezoned. So one of the requirements that's important in our proposal is that whatever we're doing to rezone is consistent with the comprehensive plan. We feel this is the case. This is the 2025 comprehensive plan. Currently, that property that the school owns, including lot 1 that we're considering purchasing, is zoned mixed use, which is a fabulous zoning code in terms of flexibility. It has residential as well as commercial uses. The issue is that the town has not yet passed or added a mixed use zone to their codes. So we feel that C2 would be, after consulting the administration of the town, that the closest relative of a mixed use would be a C2 or commercial 2. So thus, here we are. So this is a slide that's important, but kind of talks a little bit about our next thing on the agenda, which is a special use permit. It turns out that C2 has very prescriptive things you can do in it. And we want to do some things that aren't in that prescriptive use. And we'll see a little more about that on the next slide. But things that we would like to add or under special use permit to a standard C2 zoning commercial would be for community gathering places, for a museum, for instance, educational activities, workshops, public events, exhibit space, some admin offices. In addition, kitchen for farmers to possibly do some freeze drying, so it helps them through keeping some of their product, extending their life of their product. Areas to rent to nonprofits, and future housing for agricultural or museum related interns. So this is a really important slide for several reasons. I'd like to point out, and you'll hear this again and again, is that our consultant Anne Bernard from Renate, who's brought us from outer space, or maybe even light years away, back to the earth in terms of our ideas. But she really stressed that having a successful project in this arena is a three-legged stool. We need the town. Absolutely need the town buy-in. We need our buy-in to put in the resources and project management, things like that. But most importantly, we need the community. And why I want to point that out on this slide, there are 3 things on this list actually that haven't come to our minds, but in our community outreach gatherings that we've had, these things have been suggested. For instance, the kitchen for farmers to freeze dry food. We think that's a fantastic idea, because one of the things that we're thinking about in our project is recognizing agriculture. So lastly, if you can't read this slide, that's fine.
don't consult your ophthalmologist because I can't see it either. But this is the proposed zoning, C2 commercial, and there are a number of things listed. P means that it's permitted. For instance, childcare and clinics is permitted in C2. S on here is special use. So for instance, churches, community recreation centers, it can be done, but you have to go through a special use permit process. And lastly, the X is not permitted in C2, like ready mix plants. So we have no problems there, but this really highlights why, since C2 doesn't specifically state museums and these other activities, this is why the second part is so important. The rezoning criteria, I think Tina spoke to, we feel that we've met all of the criteria in our application. And I think it's evidenced by a unanimous vote by the planning commission. So I think we're ready to go. I would like to say that, we respectfully request that our zoning application is approved. And we can thank the staff, the mayor, the administrator, and all the trustees for their attention, and consideration for this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now open the public comment portion of the public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to come up and speak? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name's Nora O'Brien, and I live at 333 Onaga Avenue here in town.
Do you promise to tell the truth in this matter? Thank you.
My husband Kevin and I, we've lived at 333 Onaga Avenue for 32 years. And this building in question has been quite a few things. When we first came, it was a real active middle school, and everything was great with parking and with just the community and our neighborhood being a real active and happy place. And that was the most active time, I think, in the whole history of the school since we've been here. But since that time, it has been several other things, but most of the time it's been a quiet building with not much going on. So my husband and I are very excited about this notion of the Carl E. Berg Education Foundation coming up with this idea of bringing something wonderful to the community, to the children and to all of us as citizens in town. And I feel like most everyone that we've talked to, we haven't talked to anyone who's been negative about it. Our community our neighborhood is very positive. We live 3 houses from the front door of the building. And we just hope that the town board will approve the zoning and the special use permitting for this project. We think it's a wonderful thing for our community. This time I'm gonna remember to sign the form.
Thank you. It's hard to remember, isn't it? Thank you very much, Mrs. O'Brien. But anybody else? Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Kurt Clayton. I've been the assistant superintendent of the school district for the last 15 years. We put this, excuse me, I gotta say my address. But I actually live at 1242 Sunrise Drive in Delta, Colorado. So just a.
Do you promise to tell the truth in this matter?
I do, thank you. Sorry about that, I got ahead of myself. But I've been with the district as an assistant superintendent for 15 years. To Nora's point, this building has ebbed and flowed. The last thing that we've had successfully in there was a training for the mines, and that's been several years ago. And so no matter what happens with this property, we have no use for it from the school district side. So we're going to have to rezone it almost for anything. And so we've had a great partnership with this foundation. They've been outstanding to work with. We are excited about the partnership for our students and think it's gonna be a great thing for this community. So from the school district side of things, we are in full support of this. So thank you for your attention to this.
Thank you very much. Anybody else who would like to speak on this particular motion? Yes, ma'am.
It's 209 4th Street here in Peonia. And I think it's safe to say that I'm probably the only person in Peonia.
Finish where you went.
Oh, yes.
You promised to tell the truth in this matter.
I think it's safe to say I'm the only person in Peonia who looks at the VOTEC probably 9 to 10 hours a day. Because my home office, I literally live right across the street and my home office looks right at the VOTEC. And I am 1000% in favor of this project for all the reasons that Nora and Kurt have mentioned. And it's exactly what our little neighborhood needs, what this community needs. And I hope that the trustees enthusiastically move forward with the rezoning and issuing a special use permit. And super huge appreciation to Carl for Education Foundation for bringing this opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else? Yes?
Diane Chevrolet, I live at 211 4th Street, right across from the site in question. And hi,
Do you promise to tell the truth in this matter?
I do.
Thank you.
And I say, here to everything previously stated.
1000%. Actually writing that down. That is strong support. I love it. Anybody else would like to comment on the rezoning? Anybody online? Sure. Thank you. Does the applicant wish to have any further comment?
At this point.
Okay. Anything further from town staff?
Yeah, I would like to point out, I meant to, and did not, that there were 7 positive public comments at the planning commission meeting. We've heard from 2 or 3 of them here as well, but there were additional ones and there were no negative comments.
Thank you. Let's see, all right. I will now close the public comment portion of the public hearing. Before we turn to trustee questions and deliberation, I want to state that the documents included as part of the record for this public hearing include all application materials submitted by the applicant, all materials included in the packets, all written referral and public comments received regarding the application, the notice of hearings, and the town's ordinances. Does anyone have any objection to the inclusion of these items in the record? Yes, Clerk Redden.
I'm not objecting, but can we state for the record that we also have the draft planning commission minutes because they didn't make it into the packet in time, so just add those to the record, please.
Yes, we will be adding the draft minutes from the planning commission meeting to the record for the zoning, rezoning. Okay. Now we're at questions from the trustees. Do any trustees have any questions? And if so, who would like to begin?
Yeah, I was just curious, the easement that's being given up, is that part of the grand realignment? That's.
We could go back. Ruben, is that possible? Great question, trustee Check. Right here. So this is the area of the alignment, the town project. We have applied and got approved the school zone to put an access here into Fifth Street, which alleviates this easement. The reason we were a little worried about the easement is that we're going to need very prescriptive parking spaces for this area that we'll talk about in the next presentation a little more. But when we checked with Administrator Nguyen, we put an application in, it was approved that there would be access here. Now, having said that, Corinne and I have talked a lot about if the school needs access, of course, we'll have their backs. We're not really concerned about that. Kurt, do you want to say anything about that?
No, I think that the school district and the school board has agreed to that because we are gonna get that access up to Fifth Street. And so as soon as we get this sold, we're planning on making that happen as soon as possible. We've got an agreement that we got for a year to get that work finished, but we think that's a good solution.
So the easement is to the county and they're giving up their right to that easement? I guess I
It's the school district.
Oh, okay.
It's just the school district. We originally, when that plot was done, the school district put an easement through there so that we could access that lot.
Okay.
That's where that rock wall goes around. There's no access to that lot except through that particular driveway or parking lot.
Great question.
Any other questions from the trustees? No. Hearing none, I will now close the public hearing and turn the matter over to the Board of Trustees for consideration of the resolution listed on the agenda. So, if there's no further discussion by the Board of Trustees, I would entertain a motion.
Then I to recommend approval of RZ 2026-001 because it's not adversely affect public health, safety, or welfare and is in substantial conformity with the comprehensive plan.
I'll second that.
May we have a roll call vote, please? Yes, hold on just 1 second.
Trustee Check,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Fisher,
Yes.
Trustee Foster. Aye. Trustee Ostrander.
Yes.
Trustee Brown.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Now we will move on to the second public hearing. I've changed scripts, so I have a different one now. Okay. There I go. Okay. I will now open the public hearing on the application submitted by Carl E. Berg Foundation for a special use review permit to allow mixed use of the property currently under contract to be purchased at 218 4th Street, Paonia, Colorado 81428, to be developed as an informal education and cultural center. The purpose of the hearing is to provide a public forum for all interested parties who wish to comment on these applications before the Board of Trustees. The procedure for the public hearing will be as follows. First, all documents are included in the packet. Next, there will be a 5-minute presentation by the applicant. After these 2 presentations, we will allow members of the public to speak for up to 5 minutes. All testimony must be presented at the lectern after you give your full name and address, and I swear you in. Please do not repeat points made by others, but it is fine to say that you agree or disagree with a comment previously made. Please direct all your comments to the Board of Trustees and not to the town staff or the applicant. After receiving public comments, we will allow the applicant and town staff an opportunity to respond and answer any questions raised by the public comments. I will then turn the matter over to the Board of Trustees, and the trustees may ask questions of anyone who testified. We generally will not ask questions during the presentations. Finally, I will close the public hearing, and the Board of Trustees will discuss the matter and may take some kind of action. Once the public hearing is closed, no further comment from the applicant or public will be taken. However, the Board of Trustees may ask for advice from the town attorney. Public hearings are recorded for the public record. Clerk Vetter, do we have proper notification?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, we do.
Do any commission members have any disclosures, conflicts? Okay. Would the town administrator like to add anything else in addition to the information already included in the packet? Are there any staff comments?
Yeah, I'm going to again briefly review the staff report for this. So the applicant is requesting a special use review to allow the property to be used as a museum and educational center, including as a quote, community gathering space with educational and cultural exhibits, workshops, events, collection support, and administrative offices, which is mentioned directly in their application. So there is a list of procedures to secure the hearing, which they have done as required. And then basically the next section just discusses that if there's no clear specific category that things fall in, which was mentioned during their presentation, it really doesn't. The planning commission has the right to suggest things, which then goes to the town board. The closest things we have is on the table on the next page, which we have what is probably the closest match is a commercial recreational, which includes pool halls, bowling alleys, skating rinks, and golf courses. So it's kind of a pay an entry fee to use the services, which is allowed by special review. Other things that are either permitted or allowed by special review, dwellings is part of the business use, which I put in because the application did mention that interns might have dwellings there later. Dwellings is units secondary to the business use, membership clubs, parks and rec areas, personal services, shops, public or private schools, and retail businesses. So the short version is it's well in line with things that are allowed in the C2 district. There is a long bullet list of things to be considered. So what I'm going to summarize each item on that bullet list very briefly. So the first is compliance with the code. And there is no museum category, but it seems like an oversight, not an omission. So it probably is in compliance with the code. There may be issues with off-street parking, which I'll speak about later. And there was a mention of a splash pad, which if it refers to a ground level fountain play space or other water feature could run afoul of the water moratorium. But I think based on the last board meeting, that may not happen. The compatibility of the proposed use with the area, and it fits very much in what's going on that street in those areas. The desirability and need. The applicant said it responds to a demonstrated community interest in preserving and interpreting the area's heritage while providing flexible community gathering space. And I would tend to agree with that. The town would, sorry. The potential for adverse and environmental influences, highly unlikely. Compatibility of the proposed use with the policies and guidelines of the policies and guidance of the comprehensive plan. And it's the same three that I listed for the other one. Since our audience has not changed, I will not repeat that. Lights and signs should not be distracting to adjoining properties or motorists. And I also included the dark skies with this. And so the building, they claim all the lights are hooded in a way that comply with dark skies. I cannot verify that that's true or not, but I can verify that the dark skies ordinance says that the fixtures can exist that are older until the light fixture needs to be replaced or it's damaged in a way that it costs 50% or less to bring it up to code than it would be to repair it, or the year is 2032. So they're fine whether they are or not in dark skies compliance. There is a landscaping plan, which is point C, you have to have landscaping provided. Control of storm drainage shall be provided, and the footprint of the building isn't changing, so the current storm drainage remains effect. And Public Works reported no issues with that draining. Site design and building plan shall include provisions for the needs of handicapped individuals. And the applicant claims they will make any changes needed to make the site accessible. And from a code perspective, the building is not being remodeled, so no changes are required by the ADA standards for accessible design until the building undergoes remodeling. And then approved landscaping or solid fences capable of screening adjacent properties shall be provided where commercial uses abut residential uses. So there is only one space where it directly abuts residential uses, and that's in the southeast corner, and there is a large line of trees screening between the properties. The rest, there are streets between them, so they don't abut. So commercial and industrial uses have their own additional list. So no dust, odor, gas fumes, etc., which is not anticipated to be an issue. No smoke, again, probably not an issue. Particles of fly ash, probably not an issue. I do mention noise, that there's some very specific decibel levels for noise, which, since the primary use will be within the building, it is not anticipated that there would be an occasion where the noise will exceed the performance standards because the uses are within the building. Water pollution, very unlikely. There are 2 outside storage areas marked on the map, and they have to be screened from view with screening at least 8 feet high from residential districts specifically. And the marked storage on those maps are not visible to any of Paonia's residential districts. There's a little strip of Delta County residential that can see them, but that is not Paonia. So I'm going to move on to the parking. So again, much like the museum as a permissible thing to do in C1, there's no clear parking guidelines for a museum as well. So the chart on the next page again shows the closest equivalents. And I created the spaces required based on 75% of the building's footprint because not everything like bathrooms count towards the number of spaces you're required. So that ranges between 64 and 102 spaces. And based on the lot sizes and the internet's fabulous parking calculators, the main lot has about 60 spaces and the side lower lot has about 20 spaces. I will say that this was the major topic of conversation during the hearing was about these parking spaces. But I believe the applicant will address that a little bit more in their presentation. After those discussions, we had one additional comment in support of the project. There was a little bit discussion of traffic as well as the parking. And it was then approved unanimously by the commission.
Thank you very much. Are there any other staff comments? Would the applicant please come up to the podium?
Andy Calibris again, CEO of the Carly Berg Education Foundation. My address is 14618 Andy Lane, Paonia, Colorado 81428.
Do you promise to tell the truth in this matter?
I do. Ruben, can I get our slide deck up? Thank you. Let's see here. Okay. So again, Athena, thank you for such a comprehensive review. I could never match such a review, so I will be very brief. I think there was one area that generated most discussion during the planning commission review, and that's parking. I have a few comments. about that, but this is really all about trying to open our minds about what this property can become. And C2, obviously, commercial 2 doesn't specifically state all of these potential uses. But most importantly, I think that it really our project really represents an overall benefit to the community, and we're extremely excited in working with the community because that's what this is all about. And the list that we already talked about really came from the community and what other museums and educational centers do. So I just want to make the point that we are hyper-focused on community interaction and transparency with this entire project. And we're grateful that the town and the planning commission is willing to look at expanding what we're trying to do. Also of note, the family, not only intends to purchase this property, but to put significant funds in renovation of the property to the end of having something this community would be very proud of. Again, this is the list of things that I had already discussed. Most importantly, we want to incorporate the community's thoughts as to how this really crystallizes and what would be most useful for the community. As my chair used to say, there's tremendous power in a community and in a village. And I'm a firm believer of that. So this is the site plan. You can see there's several areas of landscaping. We've had amazing talks, and we've got a great agreement with the school that we have access to irrigation water to make sure we have trees and a landscaping protocol that's not community or potable water. Yeah, we had talked about a splash pad, but in an expansion of our scope, we would also like to put a conservation center elsewhere, and we will absolutely follow any moratoriums and any conservation protocols. Obviously, if we're having a drought, it would be prudent not to have the splash pad running. So, we'll be very careful, obviously, about that. The existing parking lots are these areas here that are striped. And I will say that in thinking about this, there's another area along 4th Street that we were proposing, if necessary, to put additional parking in. And what we would do is claim 16 feet plus a sidewalk to put parking along 4th Street. That would add a number of slots. In addition, we have property that's an 8-minute walk away that we could, if necessary, we could run a shuttle between that property and the planned site. So I think we can deal with this. Obviously, we don't want a lot of overflow parking in neighborhoods and whatnot. And I think between the acreage we have on the farm, adding some additional parking along 4th Street, which would give us another 20 plus places for patrons to park, and running a shuttle would be very easily within the realm of generating enough parking for the facility. Personally, I would love to have that kind of drop. But you know, I would, it would be great if this could grow to that level of popularity. So this is the floor plan. I'm showing this because it is, if, I don't know if many of you have walked through there, it's quite a building. This area here is the gymnasium, and my 93-year-old mother told me we're not allowed to touch that building, and it'll be a great exhibit space. We're gonna keep it as is. Maybe for some big exhibits, but we want to keep the scoreboard and the basketball court, and she had mentioned that she watched her first basketball game there. So the other weird thing is that there are a few little cubby holes in here, closets that the students over time have gotten into and written things, signed their names and dated. And I think the oldest one we found is like 1931. So this whole concept came to us after our consultant was in town, and we understood the cost of building these days, which is phenomenally expensive at the tune of about $1,000 a square foot. So $10 million for a 10,000 square foot building. With all of the other projects we want to do, we didn't want to spend that much money into put that much money into a building. There's an individual that came forward with, well, what about the VOTEC? And we thought, oh my God, what a great idea. Flew our consultant back out 3 days later because they said, you know, we're not gonna, you know, you're the exhibit person. What do you think? And she walked through this building and said, this is amazing. You know, yeah, the ceilings could be higher, but what's really special about this is that the community loves repurposing historic buildings rather than flattening them. So, you know, we're really excited to preserve some of the history. I'm working with Kurt to try to get some of the memorabilia back into the gym about some of the championships that the Paonia Eagles have had. It's going to be, you know, I think a fantastic project. So this is a slide Bina went over. There are a number of requirements. The title is Special Use Permit Criteria Review. We feel we're in compliance. I think that the Planning Commission, you know, reviewed that. We're still working on, you know, some things if parking becomes a problem, but you know, at this point, I think we're respectfully requesting that the council approve the special use permit, and we can't thank you for your effort and attention. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now open the public comment portion of the public hearing. Yes, ma'am. Excuse me.
name is Rebecca Horan. I live in town. And I'm just gonna put 2 times up here.
Okay, and you promise to tell the truth again.
I do,
Awesome.
I do. So I just want to say how excited I am about this project. And I hope that it will take the amount of parking eventually, that people will come. But the knowledge between this family, their immediate family, extended family, people in the community, their friends, in the entire county of Delta, what it will bring as far as the history of this entire area to teach and help explain to all the young people the importance of community and the remembrance of those who made it possible for all of us to be here. And I just think that it is an incredibly kind and amazing opportunity that this community has to really just show our support for each other. And I want to thank them for doing this and thank you for your consideration on everything. Appreciate all of you. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who would like to comment on this portion? See anyone else line? Okay. Would you like to say anything else?
Just gratitude.
Okay, thank you. Yes, of course. Well, I will now close the public comment portion of the public hearing. Oh, sorry.
Do that.
Yes,
I do want to note on the potential motions, the numbers are not consistent and it is the top motion that has the correct number. That is my mistake.
So,
You mean SUR? Yes. 26002 is the correct one.
yeah, okay, thank you. So now I will close the public comment portion of the public hearing. Before we turn to trustee questions and deliberation, I want to state that the documents included as part of the record for this public hearing include all application materials submitted by the applicant. All materials included. Did I forget something?
No, I was just draft. I'm sorry. That was not subtle and cool at all.
I wrote notes on one of my papers. That they're oh, yes.
I appreciate meeting minutes.
Where's my cheat sheet? Give me 1 second. Because there is a draft that was not included, correct?
That's the planning commission meetings.
The planning
Minute.
commission minutes. Yes, that are part of the record. Yes. Let's see, all written referral and public comments received regarding the application, the notice of hearings and the town's ordinances. Does anyone have any objection to the inclusion of these items in the record? Okay, now trustee Ostrander. Your
May
question?
I direct a question to the applicant?
Absolutely.
First, I just want to say, when we were doing the comprehensive plan, this is exactly what we hoped would come forward for the VOTEC, and it's really awesome to see sort of dreams come true, you know? So thank you for all the work you put into it. And also, I heard that there's a rumor that there was a big stage behind one of the walls in the.
Yeah, we took the stage out and put a classroom in. I won't fault Kurt for that.
It wasn't mine.
But we would love the stage to be restored.
It's an incredible stage space, so great that you know.
Yep.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other trustees? Questions?
I actually do have one more question. With the irrigation agreement with the school, can you describe that a little bit more?
You bet. So the school felt that they did not want, understandably, to give up any specific water shares. So the agreement was drafted that we would receive 1/3 of those shares. And that we would share capital expenses if pumps went down or something like that. The foundation would help compensate the school to maintain the pumping facility. And, you know, we would basically be collaborating with our irrigation. Kurt, do you want to add anything? Yeah, so I think we have written in there that we the school district requires our approval if to sell any shares, and we get first right of refusal, things like that. Legal stuff, but we're very comfortable with the amount of water that the school board's giving us, and then we'll pay them annually for those, you know, their use of that water. Stewarditch. Yeah, it's Stewarditch. Too bad.
Yeah, do you have a sense of how many full-time staff you might be hiring?
Yes, I wish I could, we had a meeting on Monday about it, we hired a consultant, to look at the impact and, there's a possibility for a working session and all that data will come forward. It's a significant number. I think the annual salary we predicted, total salaries would be just shy of $1 million a year. So, it'll all depend on how the projects phase over time. But we have prepared a slide that summarizes benefits, jobs being one, to the community. So we're pulling that data together.
And you're looking at keeping the basketball arena as a basketball arena, but I'm assuming using it as like an auditorium or lecture hall.
Yeah, and and then if we have some big exhibits that come in because it's a single story structure. We may run a exhibit in there for 4 months that has a big dinosaur or so, I don't know, but the key is we want to preserve the space and we would I also want to say to any business and other nonprofits in the area that we find that it's going to be very, very important for us to work collaboratively as a community in terms of how this space develops out. Because that's really important to us. So, but it would be an incredible place to have some events. The stage we were looking today actually has all the curtain tracks intact and things like that. So we're pretty excited about it.
And how many would the auditorium hold potentially?
Oh, gosh, I don't know. I don't know. I can't speak confidently on that. A basketball court size, just Kurt, you wouldn't have any idea.
No, I don't, because I don't know how many of those bleachers hold either. So.
Yeah, it's got all the wooden bleachers of years and they go up like 4, so there's people, I don't know, it's quite a few people.
Okay. Yeah, just thinking about that in relation to.
You bet. Thank you for that.
Any other questions? If there's no further discussion by the Board of Trustees, I would entertain a motion.
Yes, you close the public.
Oh, yes, I can. Sorry. I will now close the public hearing and turn the matter over to the Board of Trustees for consideration of the resolution listed on the agenda. If there's no further discussion, now I would entertain a motion.
I would make a motion to recommend approval of SUR 2026-002, as it does not adversely affect the public health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood. The use substantially conforms to the 2025 comprehensive plan, and the proposed use meets the review criteria and performance standards as required, as long as it receives favorable determination from the Board of Trustees.
Which is you. Second.
May we have a roll call vote, please?
Who did the second? I'm sorry.
Trustee Foster.
Trustee Chet,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Bishop,
Yes.
Trustee Foster. Aye. Trustee Ostrander.
Aye.
And Trustee Brown.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimous.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's gonna be quite the benefit to the community. Excited. Now we will move on to the action items. First action item is the presentation of the audit. And we'll be making the staff report on the audit.
In the rain. Right. The rain and also.
The auditor.
Yep. Good evening.
Good evening.
Are you ready for us?
Bring it on,
The
brother.
auditors and the accountants are talking, everyone must be leaving. My name is Jim Hinkle and I am with Hinkle and Company CPAs. And we did perform the annual audit, the financial statements. I have Lorraine Potter here to my right, and I'm going to talk about the audit process. Just briefly about the whole document and what it represents. And then Lorraine is going to go through the financial statements in a little bit more detail and the language of that means. So, we performed the annual audit here in December 31, 2025. We updated our understanding of the town's internal accounting controls. We looked at the cash receipts, cash disbursements, and the payroll cycles separately. The transaction typically takes 3 steps: the initiation, the approval, and the reporting of that transaction. We want to see not one person doing all 3 of those steps. It's the segregation of duties. We want 2 or more people involved in that. We then look at what we call the control features of internal controls. That's things such as approval of an invoice prior to payment, not just the payment of the invoice. And then throughout our audit process, we check those control features to ensure that they are operating as intended and that they can be relied upon. We do this for a couple of reasons. The first is we are looking for what we call significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in the internal control structure. A significant deficiency is defined as a design flaw in the system of internal controls that would allow an error to go undetected in the ordinary course of business. And a material weakness would be a significant deficiency that might result in a material misstatement to the financial statements. And based upon our analysis and all of our testing, we did not find any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in the internal control structure. That's the answer that we're waiting for. We take that information and we use that to design our audit tests and procedures. We primarily use what we call test of details, which is pretty much what it sounds like. We drill down into account balances and we look at the underlying documentation. And we verify that those transactions are reported in accordance with general accepted accounting principles. We also use a fair amount of analytic review procedures where we compare revenues and expenses to the prior year, current year to budget, various relationships within the balance sheets and the income statements. And we're looking for relationships that we either didn't expect or can't explain. And if we find any of those, we do more tested details. The end result of that is your audit opinion. Yours is referred to as an unmodified opinion. And in layman's term, it stands for a clean opinion, states that the financial statements have been prepared in accordance with general accepted accounting principles. That's also the answer that you're looking for. The document that you have this year is called an ACFR, an Annual Financial Comprehensive Report. It was put together a year ago by Stefan. He continued that process this year. Whether you want to continue that or not is completely up to the town, likely the new administrator, whoever you bring in on a full-time basis. The ACFR, as it's referred to, is really a document that is generated through the GFA, Governmental Finance and Accounting Officers Organization. They have requirements of what needs to go in there. They review it, and if it passes, you get a certificate of achievement. Doesn't add anything to the town as far as monetarily is concerned. You get that achievement award But if you go out and borrow money, it doesn't give you a cheaper interest rate or anything like that. It is made up of 3 sections. The first section is called the introductory section. It has a letter from the town administrator talking about all the great things that the town's doing. It has an organizational chart, and it has a list of who the officers are within the town. The second section is your regular financial report, your financial statements, your audit opinion, your footnotes, your budgetary comparison schedules, all those things that you would normally have to have if you just had a financial statement and not an ACFR would be in section 2. That's what is required by the state auditor's office, is what's in section 2. Section 3 then is the statistical section, and that is a whole host of statistics that go back 10 years. The first couple of them are financial related, but a lot of them are not financial related, that are revenue capacity, debt capacity information, economic and demographic information within the town and the county and things like that. Most what we see are large, medium-sized to large cities that produce the ACFR. They've gotten the certificate of achievement for the last 30 years and no one wants to break that trend. Just to let you all know what it is, that way next year, if you decide to continue to do that, that is fine. If you do not decide to continue the ACFR, that is fine as well. The state auditor's office requires just what is in section 2, which is the basic financial statements, footnotes, budgetary comparison schedules, and note files. So that kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of what the whole package is, as well as our audit process. The audit did go smooth. At the end of the audit, we issue a required communication letter that we are required to communicate in writing if certain events occur in the course of the audit. And we had nothing negative to say in that letter. We did not have any disagreements with management. We did not have any difficulties in the course of the audit. And we did not have any audit adjustments where we found errors in the books and records that required adjustments to be in accordance with general accounting principles. So that was all positive. Finally, before I turn it over, I'd like to say that as auditors, we felt like we had open transparency. Everything that we asked for was provided to us in a timely fashion, and we were never denied access to any source information or underlying documents. So we felt like we could ask for and receive whatever we felt necessary to perform an independent external audit. I think that's extremely important for everyone to know. So any questions about the audit process before I turn it over to Lorraine and she goes through the financial statements themselves? Yes.
Do you ever look at money that's gone out the door compared with, do you ever seek information from contractors and money they've received?
We will verify the expenditures with source documents such as invoices, receiving reports, purchase orders, those kinds of documentations. We'll confirm balances with bank institutions, things like that. We generally don't confirm expenditures with
Receipt of funds.
payees, so to speak, directly. Any other questions? All right, I will turn it over.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to use your seat when you talk.
Sure. Mayor Pro Tem and trustees, it's nice to be here tonight in person. I'm Lorraine Schroeder with Professional Management Solutions, and we serve as the town's consulting finance manager and accountants. And we do most of our work remotely, so I'm not out here that often, but we work monthly with your staff and Ashley, your finance coordinator, and we produce your financial statements, which were referred to tonight, each month for you, and help prepare for the audit, and appreciate getting a clean opinion and having your management letter not find any issues with how things are done. We help and make sure that you have the internal controls that the auditors are looking for, which are often hard to have in a small town when you don't have enough staff to divide duties up. But that's one of the things we do by doing your bank reconciliations each month. Since we're not involved in sending out money or sending out payroll, we're
independent in that way. And we are all governmental accountants, or accountants that work for my companies, aside from my administrative assistant. I'm just gonna walk you through this. Do you have it on screen? Do you have the PDF available?
Thank you.
Excuse me, Administrator Sun.
That's what we're checking.
Oh, sorry, right, thank you. You'll notice that this ACFR, they call it, comprehensive annual report is quite lengthy. And usually towns of your size that wouldn't be doing all this work. It's wonderful that when you can do it, if you have someone in house that can handle this. But the middle section, which is maybe a third or less of this, is what we're gonna go through. And I'm going to breeze through this report with you. I often say when I make these presentations that of the many duties that you have that are important, like the hearings that you had tonight, I think that one of the most, if not the most important role that you have as trustees is the fiduciary responsibilities that you have to safeguard the assets of the town and to make sure that the spending decisions and the revenue decisions are appropriate for what you want to accomplish, what your townspeople need, and what will guarantee the ongoing nature of your town into the future. You've got a lot of things happening here with some development, but mostly with your current activities. And they have different sources that provide the funds for your activities. Sometimes you receive grants and contributions. Sometimes you receive fees for services like utilities, selling your water, or your sewer processing processes, but most of your money. So we're going to be taking a just brief look at whether those taxing rates are high enough, whether those water and sewer rates are high enough to keep things going. Should you have issues that you for what you need to pay for in the future. Okay, this is great. Thank you very much for getting this up. We're going to go through very many of the first pages of the report from the introductory section. It's a fairly long report with the former town administrator, Wynn, has put together, giving some overviews. Then there's the auditor's opinion on page 18. And then there's this management's discussion and analysis. If you could go to page 21, please. And again, this was written by your former manager, administrator, and it seeks to analyze the numbers so that it's not just page 21 of the numbering pages, not the PDF pages, which I'm not sure what you need to add for. Management's discussion and analysis. And this is a pretty in-depth review of what the various numbers mean for your different funds. But it starts out with these financial highlights. So if someone were to ask you if, we heard that the audit was presented, how are things? How is the town doing financially? You could go to this page and take a glance through these financial highlights and give them a quick report of the things that are happening. We're going to look at sort of the tables, but you have a lot of capital assets and other monies and a fairly, very good $22 million net position or $18 million net position. Going to page 25 of this letter, which is the management's discussion and analysis, shows you a synopsis of the statement of net position that's in this book. And you'll see there's columns for governmental activities as well as business type activities. And this is page 25, as we go. And it shows it for both years. So the reason there's governmental activities and business type activities relates to what I started to mention. Some of your services, like your water and sewer activities, are run like a business. You have customers, you sell them something, you bill them for that, and you make a bottom line that's enough for you to carry forward into the future for your expansion or R&D or new lines or repair of existing systems or pipes in the ground. And those business type activities in those middle columns, you'll see those top numbers about capital assets are pretty flush with $13 million worth of capital assets in those water and wastewater activities. And down at the bottom, you've got your net position for the business type activities, that column 25 bottom, 15,691,000. You have about 3.9 million in capital assets down there, but at the top it said you had 13 million. And that's because you have a lot of long-term debt on loans that you use to construct those assets. So your net investment in those capital assets is the lower number at the bottom. On the left is the governmental activities. This is your regular general town operation, your public works department, your planning and zoning, your police department, your anything you do for recreation or special events, your administration. And these are items that sometimes you charge fees for. There's zoning fees and planning fees, etc. But there's not fees for police patrol or for driving on the street or getting a pothole fixed or grading an alley or something like that. So that's tax supported, and that is an operation that's run on what's called the flow of financial resources based on the county, where you're looking at, do you have enough money? Is there enough financial resources coming in, money coming in to pay for those activities that you have to do, and the money going out for them? The business type activities are a flow of economic resources. It's not just the money in, money out, it's the capital plant. When is it going to need to be replaced? How good is it? When do you have to expand it? What's your economic value of that whole enterprise? And these are called enterprise funds because they're run like a business. And that's why there's these different categories of conversation and numbers that are put together. Because people say, well, yeah, but what's the bottom line? Don't just tell me general fund and water fund. What's the bottom line of the town? This page 18, or sorry, page 25 does show you in the right-hand side, the bottom line for the town for 2025 is the second from the right number on the bottom, total net position at the end of 2025. And this chart shows what the town of Paonia has amassed over the whole time of its existence, from when you first became a town until now. You've amassed a net position of 22,394,000. You see, just by looking next to that for 2014, that your net position went up a lot in that 1 year of 2025. So when you go to the next, to page 27, see a different chart for the whole town. It's still summarized like this. It's just saying what happened in 1 year, not the whole time you've been a town. But during 25, how did we go up by that much net position? And this says, well, we had these revenues and expenditures, and the revenues exceeded the expenditures. So we had a change in net position at the end of 25 for the governmental activities of $402,000. That increased that bottom line. The business activities had a change in net position of $3.8 million. So that's why the total net position went up by so much between the 2 years. At the top where the revenues are, I mentioned the program revenues where you're charging for a service. And for the governmental activities, those are kind of smallish numbers, charges for those fees, permits, et cetera, various items that you sell. And then but most of it's by taxes. And that's the property taxes, the sales taxes, marijuana taxes, things of that nature that fund all of those programs, general government, public safety, public works, culture and recreation. The middle section where the business type activities are, you've got your bigger numbers usually at the top, charges for services, 2.4 million, and some operating grants and capital grants. And you have other monies coming in for these projects that you have going on. So that is the difference and why it's shown separately. There's two different ways these operations that are municipal operations need to be looked at under generally accepted accounting principles. skip forward all the way to page 52. But the rest of this MD&A, the management discussion and analysis, might be something that you would want to look through, where it's more an evaluation of individual numbers that I'm not going to go into tonight. But there is a lot of information there that your former administrator put together. You go to page 52 of the document. This is the statement of net position that's not condensed. What we just looked at was condensed. So there's a few more line items on here about what those assets and liabilities are. So you've got more information there, but I'm not going to go through it again. It's the same concept. Same with the next page, which is more information about how you change in 1 year. But go to page 56, please. And this is where what you're mostly familiar with and what you look at each month in your financial statements that we send you. This is for each of your government funds, not the enterprises, your revenues and expenditures for the year. You don't see any capital asset information in the governmental funds. Instead, you see what you spent on capital assets that year, the capital outlay. So there's your general fund. It went up. The net change in fund balance, 116,000. But that's a good thing to note, that you had an increase in fund balance, even though you did spend 218,000 on capital outlay during the year. So you were using some of your reserves, so to speak, to do some capital outlay and still had a profit that year. I like to point your attention to the ending fund balance for the general fund, 1,167,000. It's not quite the same amount as your revenues for the year, but it's more than half a year's worth of revenues. Maybe it's 8 or 9 months worth of revenues. And that is key to you if there were ever a horrible calamity, fire, flood, something of that nature that wiped out your tax base for a while, that took out the Main Street, or that, really diminished your revenues. You've got enough in your fund balance that you can keep operating for many months without getting any new money in. And if that calamity happened, you could cut out some of the expenses, but some of them you still have to provide public safety. You still probably need more for public works or planning and zoning as things rebuild. But you'd have enough money to keep going until you've got FEMA funding or some other method of rebuilding and regrouping after a calamity. And that, I think, is a real important thing to keep in mind as you budget. What should that ending fund balance be for the general fund? We don't want it to grow up to 5 million maybe, because then you feel like you're overtaxing your system. Maybe you don't need to have such high rates or charges, but you don't want it to be so diminished that you don't have a decent amount of funds to rely on if you have a real issue. You don't want to be caught like, why don't we have any money? Why don't we have this balance? The next two funds are different, sales tax and street fund, because those you have options on. Sales tax capital improvement, yeah, you want to get money in there and build it up and then do projects. And then you want to spend it down and then start building it up again and do projects, spend it down and use it. But you don't have to keep doing a capital project every year. You can let that grow and then be diminished. Now, if you have a lot of future capital projects that aren't going to be funded soon enough by the money in there, then that's where you would think about how would you increase that revenue source. So these are the kind of things to think about when you're looking at these budgets that are coming forward. You'll probably have departments requesting or looking at this capital project or that capital project. Administrator Sun went through several tonight that are important projects. And so these are the last firm numbers that you have starting out the 27 budget process. These are audited and right, that's what you have. When you continue working on the 27 budget later this year, 26 will still be going on. So you don't know exactly where you're going to end up at the end of 26, but you have a good starting number for the beginning of 26. You'll have 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 months of actuals in the books. And you'll be able to make a good estimate about how much money you'll have in each fund to start looking for 27's budget process. We're gonna go to the next page, skip 2 pages to page 58. And here we start talking about those enterprise funds, water and sewer. Here they do have the assets right on the balance sheet here. You've got some cash with escrow agents, which means you've got a loan. Somebody's holding that money until you demonstrate that you need it and how you spend it, correctly. Then they release it to you as a reimbursement, so to speak. But it's already yours, and you have liabilities that'll be going against it. Maybe that's cash from another source. Capital assets that have accumulated depreciation, 6.3. So you do have a lot of capital assets here in each of the funds, except each of the water and sewer funds. Trash is also an enterprise. It's operated like a business where you perform a service and bill your customers. The next page shows how each of those funds did during the 1 year of 2025. And here's where you want to look down and kind of not quite around halfway down net operating income. During the, make sure you can still see the top, please, Ruben. So for water, we have revenues of 2 million, operating expenses of $1 million, and a net operating income of 966,000. You had a gain on part of forgiveness of part of one of your loans, $3 million. And that's what helped your net position go up by 3.8 million during the year, the forgiveness of the loan. And so you've got, we have a gain from a loan. You have a gain from forgiveness of the loan. So they turned it into a grant essentially, that you won't have to pay that. And then sewer, your net operating income is much lower, 17.9. And so when you get down to the bottom for there, you've got a change in net position of 35,000. If you take the 3 million out of the water change in net position, you've got 826,000, which is pretty good. But you've got a lot of future needs there and future capital that will have to be replaced. So you don't want to be spending this down to just a few months worth of revenues every year. You have to plan for capital expansion in the future, capital replacement. So these are looking good to us. And the trash fund has a net operating loss, 46,000. Generally, you don't want to run a business that doesn't have revenues that cover the expenses. So that may be something to look at and see if you want to change the structure of that fund and what their charges for service rates are, or if there's any ways that you can have cost savings there. You've still got a net position. If you go down slightly, you'll see the ending of the year, 309,000. So it's not like you're running this fund to the ground, but you don't want to keep on a trend that's going to have losses every year. So that's important for your budget. That's the main part of the financial statements. As far as the numbers go, page 63, which is coming up in a minute here, starts the notes. And I just point these out to you so that you know they're here. But this tells you pretty much everything that you may want to know if somebody uses a term that's in this financial report that you want to know what that means or how are we measuring that. It tells you how you measure cash, what's the receivable. Just going through, you can just kind of run page by page, Ruben through here. What's the interfund receivable? How do we handle our capital assets? It's on page 66. Going through pages. Capital assets, we depreciate them over these various years. We list them at cost when we buy them or build them. You've got some pensions, you've got some long-term obligations. These are what these terms mean. There's some estimates in here because we estimate the remaining value of these capital assets based on straight line depreciation. They're not appraised, for an exact value. There's other estimates of similar sort that are in here about what you're going to have to pay off if people leave that have built up leave or sick leave reserves that will get paid out, vacation leave, I mean. It tells what your cash and deposits are in note 369 and 70. Then tells you what you're allowed to invest in on page 71. And 70 and 71. So that if people say, why don't you just buy some Amazon stock and make some more money? You can say, we're a statutory town, we have to go by what's in the state statute, this is what we can do. But you are wisely using the what's called color trust on the next page, local government investment pool, which takes in monies from various towns, counties, cities around the state, pulls them and invests them and gets a higher yield than any of you could get on your own. Even if you did have the staff and knowledge to be investment savvy. So they do that for you and you get a good return. During 2025, it was around 4%. Much better than you can usually get at a local bank. There's a big note on your capital assets by various types, the business activities and the governmental activities, and what your bottom line value is on those different assets. Page 73 starts everything you would want to know about any of your long-term debt. So when you look at the bottom of page 73, you see that you did get a Colorado Water Resources and Power Development Authority loan for $6 million. And then they turned around and forgave $3 million of it right away. And then you made a payment of $49,000 also during the year on the remaining loan. And so it shows you what your balance is, what the original source was, and what's due coming up in the next year.
Do we have all of our loans in one place? We can look at total applications.
And these loans are not all in the one place. One is with the top two are with the Colorado Water and Power Development Authority. So is the second one, the Water and Power Authority. But the bottom one, DWRF, Drinking Water Revolving Fund, from I think it's associated with Colorado Water and Power, but it's another loan source. It's separate.
This is the total long-term debt that the town has.
It
They all
is.
listed in the.
It is, as of the end of 2025.
And you have projected outlays over the lifetime of each loan.
Yes, go to the next page. And you'll see for each loan, it tells you when it was taken out, what the interest rate was, what the terms are, why it was taken, and what the debt service to maturity is. And it listed individually for each of the next 5 years, and then in 5-year increments after that. So page 75 is one that has some 5-year increments at the bottom, 2031 to there you are. It was that page to 2035, etc. So this all there.
That is our total long-term debt obligation,
It is
all from all loans.
all the loans, and technically you also list what's called accrued compensated absences, where if the whole staff were to leave at once and all of their accrued vacation, unused vacation or other leaves that they get paid out were to be paid out in 1 year, that's shown for that. That's a hypothetical and that's an estimate. It depends on what day they left and what their rate pay was and the time they left, etc. There's more information about the retirement plans. Your police department is part of the Fire and Police Pension Association that's run by the state of Colorado. It's a sound pension plan, but this fairly lengthy note 6 is required, and it gives you all kinds of actuarial information and what your share of that potential obligation or net asset that the pension fund has is. And you're in good shape and you have a very small portion of any debt or issues that they might have. So that's what these various notes to the financial statements are. Also talks about the Tabor Amendment on page 85. And that concludes those notes. Then you have required documents starting on page 87, which is mostly some more information about the pension and some budget to actual information about each fund and where you came out. Let's go to page 90, for instance. That's about the pension. But this is fine, each of your funds budget pages are shown, which was your original budget and what did you actually do? So you can compare there. And then keep going through this, it continues that through to page 94. And there's where you have your two smaller funds that were combined into one column in the front of the book because they don't meet the criteria to be considered major funds and have their own column. And there's the Conservation Trust Fund where you put the lottery funds that the state gives, and they can only be used for parks or certain recreation programs. And you have a small sidewalk fund there. After that come the budget to actuals for your water, sewer, and trash funds. And that's the end of what would normally be in your audit. After this comes section 3 that Jim discussed. It shows the financial section.
Actuals, do we have any breakdown in terms of the codes, particular project codes within the budget to actuals for the enterprise departments?
We have that, but it doesn't appear in your published audit report. But it's in the monthly financial reports. We could run one for the very end of the year and it would have all the line items in there. And you appropriate money by fund. So if one line item is over and another one's under, you don't have to change your budget because of that. But you can't exceed the appropriation for any fund in total.
Right, it's been confusing to track how much money was spent on which project because the way they're allocated by fund. So on a project management side, I was just curious if you can parse the data that way with the data set you manage.
Well, we have made some recommendations and I've already had a few beginning conversations with Greg about this year's budget process and how to use the funds as they are rather than to show things transferring around between the funds. We also always recommend that if you have a capital project, you put all of the costs in one line item. So they're not, so there was some in engineering, oh, there was some in other professional services, oh, there was some legal, and you can't see it all, we put it all there. But the town also has a supplementary schedule that the auditors review in depth of these capital projects and what was capitalized for the year and what those total capital outlays are. It's in that note 5 or 6, whatever the capital outlay note was here, that shows every new capital project, the ones that are still in process, the ones that are completed, what their value is at the time they go on your capital assets, and then what the depreciation is every year until they're fully depreciated. And then when and if they're disposed of, then those deletions are also shown. And in the note about the capital assets, it shows you the additions and deletions, if any, that are summaries of what's on that very detailed ledger, essentially, that we keep for the town. I'm not going to go through the statistical section. This can be useful if you're ever going to issue bonds or something. You might have some of this tenure data already from here. But again, it's not a required part of your financial statements. It is required if you continue to do an act for things of annual comprehensive financial report. No, I breezed through a lot of information and you've already had a lot of information tonight. So I appreciate your attention and I'm happy to answer any questions now or in the future. If you feel like you have looked at these funds by doing this and that you're satisfied with the results of the year, that you're in good financial standing and you want to just put this away and say I'm satisfied with my fiduciary responsibility for the year, I think that'd be fine. Or if you want to delve into it, they say, oh, now I know about it. I want to look into this more or that more. Feel free and feel free to contact us if you want to discuss any of it in more depth.
Thank you very much. I'd like to just add one little brief addition to what she said, that she went over the pension, fire and police pension administration. That is fully funded, has been fully funded for the last 2 years. So unlike the teachers para program, it's 60% funded, the police and fire has been fully funded. So you actually have no pension liability on your financial statements. You have some related accounts, but that is fully funded for the last 2 years.
Thank you. It's good to know. Are there any questions from the trustees before we open up public comment? Are there any audience members that would like to come up and ask questions or speak about this topic? Yes.
Christina Patterson. Why wasn't this in the packet? It's so hard to follow. It's almost like you can't ask any questions. It would have been so nice to have looked over this before tonight.
I do not have the answer to that question.
Just proceed.
But that would be the answer.
More timing than anything else. Getting it out for the July 31 filing due date for the state auditor's office.
It's sort of impossible to ask questions, just sort of like looking at it tonight.
It will be on your website as a public document.
As a draft.
No, well, as a file, but if you have any questions at all, I'm sure if you ask management any questions you have, Lorraine and I would be happy to answer.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. If there are no further,
I would just like to make the request in the future that we don't do this way, if we can help it from a deadline perspective, because it is hard to have something like this that's so big thrown at us all at once. So I don't know if there's any protocol we can have in the future where we don't have our budget audit given to us on the night of, and if we can have any sort of, like, if we've been given it today, could we have done it in the next meeting? I understand there's perhaps a deadline that has to be met, but it's just challenging there's not much we can do with it, and we have so much business to do every meeting. It's hard to just park it and come back to it, although obviously we will have to do that to review it. So I'm just wondering, like, is there something we can do differently in the future?
Yes. May I answer?
Oh, yeah, go.
Yes, I think Lorraine and I both say yes. I think part of this year was more of a timing issue with Stefan leaving, and then him taking 2 weeks off that he took off. We didn't pull the whole thing together until we had the section 1 and section 3 of the ACFR that he wanted to put together. And he did that while he was off on his vacation. And so it kind of all came together here in the last part of July. But I think that without that we could very definitely have it. What we typically see is about a week in advance when the packet goes out, then the financial statements is included in that packet for you all to review. And I think in a normal case that would be met. I think this year was just a little tough with him leaving and then taking 2 weeks off at the very end and doing a lot of the section 1 and section 3 items while he was on vacation. So that made it a little difficult timing wise.
That's all I was gonna say to the trustees, this is the first time it's ever landed like this in a lot of those, just because we had a huge transition at a really critical time, so. We did the best we could with it.
Just a clarifying question, in general, I thought it was against our protocol to include written information in a meeting that hadn't been properly noticed, so just can you clarify for me how that works?
Yeah, so since the item was already on the agenda for the presentation, that's what it needs to do. So we'll actually modify the packet after the meeting to include anything that was brought forth during the meeting as well, so it becomes a part of the record. And so that's how we do that in the past, like if people hand out comments or stuff like that, that would be modified into a packet because we had no way of getting it. What's important is that the presentation of the audit was on the agenda. So.
yes, Pete.
Yeah, Pete McCarthy in town. My question is really just a question around the last meeting. I heard Greg, you mentioned that you thought that the audit might come back and there might be a need for a treasurer. Did I hear that correctly? Okay. And so I'd just like to get clarification on that. I would like to point out too, when I look at those numbers, I see a lot of personnel numbers. I believe you had a 5% increase in your costs for your personnel last year. You've got an investment that's making you 4%. Clearly, we're in an inflationary time. We look around us at many of the other towns, they're in budget problems right now. Usually towns all get clean bill of healths right before they don't. Some of those awards we were talking about getting, those towns got those awards right before they went bankrupt. So just because the numbers all check out, and I'm sure that they do, doesn't mean that everything is financially sound. I think that some financial modeling, which I have done, if you try to do some financial modeling of your income for, let's say, the 2008 recession, which is certainly not out of the realm of possibility. We may get through this next year or two without that. We very may it is possible that we will have something like that. I don't think with growing your staff by 40% over the last 5 years, and that being your largest line item, I think that is something that you need to look at, tighten up, because that will continue to grow and grow and grow. And I think you need to look at some financial modeling for what happens if we enter into recession. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good question. Shirley James, I live out of town. There was a comment recently made that the town of Paonia would go under without all of the loans and grants. And I'm asking, is that true? Can the town exist without all of the grants and loans that you get? Can that be answered? I'm just curious.
Is that something that can be answered easily in this study?
To some extent.
Could you speak upon that?
Thank you.
Because Paonia is a small town, we still have, like, for instance, in water and wastewater, we have a lot of assets that need to be maintained that haven't been over the years. And at the same time, it's important to report that that really isn't very different from most cities in the United States. No one likes to replace their water and sewer lines and their streets and things like that because it's expensive. And so by far the majority of cities, those haven't been maintained as well as they should be. So Paonia is more typical than untypical in that case, but it is something we need to work on. And in a lot of ways, there's grants help buy down the cost of replacing a lot of these assets. And same thing happens with loans when we get them from the state. We get them for much lower cost than if we went out on the market.
Just curious.
Yes.
If I might add one thing to that about the loans, it's the general theory for water and wastewater expansion or replacement or construction is that what they build is going to last 30, 40, or 50 years. And so when you get a loan to do it and you work that into your fees for the next 30, 40, or 50 years, then all the people who are using that aren't here today are paying for their part of it 10 years from now or 30 years from now, et cetera. So that's some of the thinking behind the traditional method of using loans to build long-term assets.
Thank you. Are there any further questions or comments? Anyone online? Yes.
Short, I live in town. There comes a point in time when a town grows to a point where it can no longer handle certain services. And to me, when I was listening to this gentleman's explanation about trash and the fact that you're running a negative. And I've often wondered when I came to this town, why the town of Paonia is handling the trash. I don't know if it's a historical thing, because I haven't been here long enough, But I'm just wondering if we haven't gotten to the point in town where we contract out. There are companies out there, Waste Management, for example, is a very large US-based company that handles trash. If there's not a point in time that we come to that we don't absorb that expense anymore, because we're obviously, it's not paying for itself. And that we turn that over to a contractor. Just an idea.
Thank you very much. Excuse me. Anybody else like to comment? Okay.
I have a question. For Administrator Sun, do we have a long range model for debt obligations plus income? Because I know we have certain grants that will run out in time, like, do we have an understanding of when? Like, just how far projected into the future we are in terms of projected income and projected obligations and expenses?
No, I don't think we projected income very far out. It's not that hard to do that. It's not easy to do it accurately past about 3 years or so. I've done a lot of financial projections and they get pretty guessy if you get past 3 years.
Sure, I'm just, many of our debt obligations extend past 3 years, so I'm just curious if we have an understanding of when. It looks like we have a surplus now. Do we have any reason to be concerned in the next 3 to 5 years?
I don't think in the short term, but it is something we're definitely going to have to watch. Taking on $6 million in debt for the water fund is going to be a challenge.
I'm curious from the auditor's standpoint, because I am not familiar with this in the public sector, but in private sector, we would be looking at debt obligations out, for a longer period than 3 years. How is it typically looked at in terms of business modeling? For expenses, obligations, and debt?
Which, if you want to take that, I want to take that. From an auditor standpoint, we look at 1 year. Will the auditee, the entity, be able to continue to pay its bills within the next year? And that's what's called a going concern. And if we don't think you're going to be able to pay your bills in the next year, then we have to qualify the opinion as to the going concern. And then you put in liquidation values and all kinds of stuff. But no, the audit itself is looking at the year under the audit. We're not really looking out in 3, 5, 10 years. Lorraine may have a few things to add to this, but a lot of municipalities will have a long-term plan for their capital expenditures. When are they going to have to replace their water plant, their sewage lines, things like that, and what's the plan over the next 3, 5, 10 years? And then, if you want to add to that.
I'll add just a little bit, and maybe if you could bring page 58 back up on the screen, it might help. But for those proprietary funds that James showed their finances in the flow of economic resources, they have the full long-term liabilities on the face of the balance sheet. And so when you look at the net position, it's included there. And even with that $6 million loan,
Yeah.
you still have a net position of $10 million.
Any further questions? Please. Okay, I'll entertain a motion if somebody is ready. Yes, we did no motion.
Yeah, this is a presentation. There's no motion. It was my bad on the script.
Okay. So that'd be the end of action number 1.
Presentation.
Presentation report. So let us move on to number 3. Consideration of a request to expand the scope of the ad hoc short-term rental committee recommendation work. And are there any staff members that are going to talk about action presentation number 3? Expand the scope of the ad hoc short-term rental committee.
Speak as a member of the committee as much as staff respect.
Okay, well, I did not know.
And the reason that this was suggested is that putting limitations on a committee greatly affects its ability to make recommendation. And so by not having as many restrictions, it can drain a little bit and come up with something that can be workable by the board of trustees. Doesn't mean that you're going to have to take the recommendation word for word, but it gives them more ability to produce a reasonable proposal.
Okay, do we need to specifically say what is going to expand or for the ad hoc short-term rental committee? Do we need to put? Do Sam?
Is it okay if I interject here?
Yes.
Greg?
Sure.
Okay, I believe so the document that's in here is, when we hired a facilitator, this list was used to define what the STR committee was to make recommendations on, in the course of its duties, and then what the board was gonna do on it. The STR committee, because they're working with the public and a lot of their job was to seek public comment and talk with Common Grounds, the people who helped appeal the original ordinance, would like to be able to make recommendations on the list on the trustee side. They know they can't make decisions on it, but they want to be able to discuss those with the people that are involved with everything and at least be able to bring forward recommendations for when the ordinance is put together. So I think if you wanted to expand the scope of it, you just have to make a motion saying so, and then.
I believe the committee asked the board to support a specific motion, did we not?
Yes.
Yeah, so I believe we have language around a specific motion in order to broaden the scope and attract the seats that we need, and also in response to the clarification that citizens are allowed to come up with proposed ordinance language, though the board, of course, would need to actually pass any said ordinance. So if it's possible, could we read that language specifically? Because I think the chart gets kind of confusing versus what the committee is asking for, which is a fairly simple expansion of scope and expansion of the facilitators contractual language to match that expansion of scope. Thank you.
The committee requests permission to expand the STR committee scope to include elements that were not in the original scope.
Is there another request?
This was the first one. And the next one was the facilitator. That's why I made sure to put this in here, because this was the scope that was originally discussed when it was on there. So that's why we put it in there, hoping it would make it easier for you guys to decide what you wanted to do with it.
But we don't have a list of the specific requests from the committee about this scope.
They didn't want to produce specific list because that's tying their hands a lot, depending on whatever they say.
Okay, so the request is just.
To allow them to address subjects that are.
Yeah, it's just simply to expand the scope.
There's no definition of what that means.
No. So the clerk provided, I guess, the original scope. And what we're asking is just for an expansion of scope. So that we can review all potential recommendations and discuss them with the committee of the public.
They want to be able to discuss more than the 7 topics that are listed on the right side.
Right.
That are built into the STR facilitator's contract. So they'd like to be able to discuss some of the items that are on the left side of it.
This came from the clarification from the administrator's son that the committee can in fact recommend ordinance language beyond a specific scope if approved by the board to do so. Now, the board would still have to approve and decide and potentially in this case write an ordinance, but it just allows us to expand our scope without specific boundaries.
Very limiting having just the 7 items when there's so much more involved. And if we stick within that scope, it's kind of tying our hands.
Yeah, in fact, our hands were tied by the fact that we were unable to attract members to fill the open committee seats because one of the large coalitions that we wanted to bring in somebody to take a committee seat refused to do so without an expansion of the scope. And we felt that it was a reasonable request given the interpretation of the law that these types of committees are allowed to bring broad recommendations forward, and it does not obligate the trustees to do them. It's the trustees' job to understand what should not be included in ordinance. However, the limited scope was blocking our ability to fill the 2 empty seats and move forward with the committee's job.
There were people interested in serving whose flat said that.
Okay, so I'm just trying to understand for the motion, do we need to identify from the left-hand column? No. We're just expansion.
Just expansion of scope.
Yeah, can you?
The committee won't be limited to the items list.
Right, so just clarifying that the previous instruction doesn't apply anymore, essentially.
Right.
Okay. Cool. Sorry, that was very informal. It's late.
If I could add to it though, since it does have somebody's contract tied to it, there probably needs to be some kind of a timeline on it, because I know that was one of the reasons that this was done in the first place. So I just encourage you guys to think of that too, since you're doing a contract next for an extension.
I believe that we'd also requested an extension of his contract.
That's the next agenda item, but this has to go first.
So I would like to make a motion that's the wrong language. I move to expand the scope of the STR committee beyond its original 7 items. And to expand the contractor's scope to
Separate.
That's okay, but I'm confused. There's an expansion of the contractor's scope and there's an extension of his timeline. Do those 2 go together?
No,
Yes,
there's 2 different agenda items. You're expanding the scope of the ad hoc short-term rental committee, and then the next item is to extend his contract. It's 2 different agenda items.
so it's the next item amends the contract.
Okay, thank you.
This is both.
Okay.
Is there public comments?
Emma, is public comment still active? Yes, okay. Pete, come on up. So. Mr. McCarthy.
Yeah, Peter McCarthy in town. Are we at 5 minutes now, or was that just for that?
That was just for the.
Well, this is very near to me, near to my heart. It's really why I got involved in the town in the first place, why I joined the planning commission and what led to all this brouhaha. I have been going to the meetings, some of the STR meetings. I think I understand what the committee is asking for, having witnessed some of the discussions. I mean, when you look at some of these things, they're debating how to define a single room rental. But you can even have Airbnb fees for single room rentals. And when we tried to bring up that's like out of the scope. And so that's a really good, like, it's like what we're basically given this very limited, number of things. You don't need a committee for that. You're just telling them to come back and give us some definitions and give us some approval of what we gave you. That, no one wants to participate in a committee like that. I also don't think you need a mediator. I think that is something that, well, I mean, I know that's a different agenda item, but I really think that if you just empower the people and let them hear from the public. I've sat down with both sides. I was the person who wrote an initiative. I've sat down with the pro Airbnb people. We've worked out and ironed out a compromise between many of us. But none of this, that compromise doesn't fit into any of this at all. So I do think you should open that up. I do think that hiring a mediator for $200 an hour, given our budget constraints, given the money that we wasted this year on cameras and surveillance, robots and things like that. Like we all bring our gifts to the table. I'm sure Scott is a great mediator. I think if he wants to give that gift to the town, so be it. But I think hiring and kind of doling out these positions, it's a little patronizing. I won't join a committee that's going to have a mediator. We're all able to mediate amongst ourselves, and we don't have to waste time to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
I need to make the motion again.
Yes.
Oh, there's more. Sorry.
More.
Ethel Short. My name's the last one on the list. I live in town. So when I was at the last meeting, last week, at the STR committee, they, y'all were there, and I raised the issue. There was a lady who stood up and wanted to join the committee. She did not have any experience with STRs, either owning one or staying in one. And I raised the issue that I think that is not a good fit as a committee member. I liken it to the fact that airplane mechanics know everything about airplanes, but I'm not going to ask him to fly. I want somebody who's knowledgeable and qualified. And I don't think that you need to be coming in and just saying, oh yeah, I really want to be on this committee because I think I have something important to say. I think you really need to know what you're talking about. I also really dislike the term STRs and short-term rental. They're vacation rentals. I've owned them. I have them now, and I've used them. When I moved here a year and a half ago, I stayed at Sweetgrass. I stayed at several Airbnbs. So I think that they do have a place in this town, and I think there needs to be somebody who's really familiar with STRs, vacation rentals, that needs to be on those committees before they start making decisions regarding them, because this town is different. It's not Aspen, it's not Titan. And that's. Thank you.
I would raise my hand if I knew how. Can you hear me? Is it my turn? Okay. Hi, I'm Deborah Spiegel. I live in town. I've been active on this topic for a very long time, and have been asked to consider being on the committee. I am very confused about what the committee's even supposed to do at this point, because defining room definitions and the things that are on the right hand side there was just felt like a spinning wheel. So are we supposed to come up with an ordinance and then you guys write it into legalese? Are we just supposed to share our ideas and you write the ordinance? I would really like to get, I know it's like a one-way conversation here, but we are confused about the whole purpose of the committee at this point. At least I am, and I would like to know why it's happening, and I am committed to attending and participating to the fullest once I know that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, is there anybody else that would like to talk on this topic?
Ask a question, Christina Patterson. I agree with Deborah. I'm very confused as to what this committee is doing now. Town road ordinance, it was repealed from 2B. Voters voted on it, more than 70% to repeal that ordinance. So it was basically at zero, like, right? And I am wondering, like, is this committee was set up because we got a grant? That there's some stipulations in that grant that you have to have, you have to understand like the STRs. And that grant was the from DOLA, and it was Department of Local Affairs Housing Planning Grant, and we got 7,500 from that. And I'm just wondering if that committee was set up because we got that grant and there were stipulations that had to be met for that grant. And everybody's asked around the edges about that, but does anybody know the answer to that? Because that would be a good basis then to start again with this committee. Thanks.
Thank you. I'd like to just provide a little background from my making the motion, and I'll make another one since we've timed out. I believe that this committee prepared a very good starting place for the town to look at as an ordinance. In order for us to consider that ordinance, we need to that proposed ordinance, and to look if we want to add anything, we need to expand the scope of the committee so we can formally accept it. So the idea of expanding the scope of the committee is so we can take a look at what was submitted and say, let's build on this. And if there's anything else that people want to talk about and say, then the committee is there for that purpose. And then to make a recommendation back to the town. Now, the Board of Trustees is the one who will be passing an ordinance. And so I think that comes down to them, and it doesn't have to be an ordinance form, but that draft ordinance that was provided by that coalition of people that folks helped facilitate is a good starting place. And I would like us to be able to consider it and to be able to look at what else we might want to consider, which is hence why we are requesting of the Board of Trustees tonight an expansion of the scope beyond the initial 7 areas.
Well said. On that note, we're ready to entertain a motion to expand the focus of the STR committee so that that ordinance can be looked at and movement can occur. Okay. Are you willing to give that motion a shot again?
I think Greg may have better language.
Just based on the discussion tonight, I wanted to part that should be just removing the limitations.
Yeah, so too. Yes.
So that might be difficult to see.
I move to remove the limitations on the STR committee for recommendations on short-term vacation rentals. Second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? I hear none. Motion is passed. Which brings us right into number 4, extension of facilitators contract and potential revised. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, so if we're going to finish the agenda, we're gonna need a motion to extend the meeting to 9:30.
Yes.
I think after this one, a lot of it is pretty, probably not too controversial, maybe, so.
A motion to extend the agenda till 10 o'clock, just to be safe.
Is there a second? All in favor? Aye.
Sorry, clarification was the second. Okay, fine. I'm still getting used to your voice.
Me too.
Thank you. One time, yes. Thank you.
Okay. So maybe now we can move on to extension of the facilitators contract and potential revised scope. if we just changed removed all the scope from the STR, how does that affect the stock?
We need to amend his contract to reflect that. So we would strike out.
Remove the limitations from this contract, and extend it to the end of the
I move to remove the limitations from public comment, the STR facilitator, sorry, public comment. Sorry, I'm just tired. Yeah.
Is there any public comment on the extension of facilitator's contract? And potential revised scope from the public? And trustees? Yes, sir.
Sorry, I just wanted to just toss out there just because it came up. I would like to remind the board that the reason there's a facilitator is because the committee requested it so that it would help with the process along and as they were going, since they lost their original facilitator. I just wanted to get that back on the record. It's been a minute since that happened, so.
Thank you. I would willing to entertain a motion if we don't have any more questions. Comments?
A motion to remove the limitations of the scope from the facilitator's contract and extend it to the end of the year.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? That has been approved. Consideration of resolution 26-13, declaring a vacancy for mayor of the Board of Trustees. Sam?
Yeah, and we talked about this a little last time. I think the staff report pretty much covers what I've already told you. It follows the same process as a trustee. Filling a trustee seat. The only difference that I've done with it is I haven't done a 2-meeting waiting list on this one, which isn't required. It's just usually what we do, and that's just because the office of mayor is pretty important. They're a liaison between the board and the staff. They have signing powers. They treat the town attorney, the town administrator, other staff members, and it's really something that probably the sooner we can fill it, the better for everybody. It just helps things go smoother. So. If you have any questions about the process, I'm happy to answer.
I had a question about just a point of clarification. I think at some point there was discussion that we could potentially appoint a trustee as the mayor and then open up applications for a trustee. Is that not an option?
That's actually what is in statute. However, at some point, a board of trustees added code to make that different, to make it follow the same process as this. So if we didn't have that in there, then yeah, that's what we could do. But because of our code and then the resolution that talks about what happens when there's a vacancy, we either do it this way or we go to election. But unfortunately, that doesn't appear to be an option for us with the code as it stands, so.
So if we declare the vacancy, say what would be the deadline for the application?
It's gonna be the Wednesday before August 11th. Sorry, thank you, August 5th, I'm reading my own report. And that's just so that everything can be in the packet for you guys to review and look at, and then you guys would be able to, depending on, you know, if we have people who apply for the position, you guys would be able to make a decision and appoint somebody as mayor at the August 11th.
So just a week to receive applications.
With what the previous board did, would it be possible to adjust that decision so that it could be an election?
Yes, but not in enough time to do this, though. It's absolutely something we could put in a parking lot, we could bring back, we could talk about it. You guys would have to create the ordinance, and then once it's adopted, it has to be published for 30 days before it's enacted. So it wouldn't help us in this, but we can absolutely put that on a list to look at.
Can a current sitting trustee submit an application for the mayor?
Yes. Any registered elector of the age of 18 that lives in the town limits pay. For at least a year, yeah, so Same thing for running for trustee, yeah, so. That includes city board members, yes.
Okay, so we need to make a motion to approve resolution 2613. Is that correct?
Yes. Which comment?
Any public comment on declaring a vacancy for mayor from the public? Anyone on Zoom?
Okay.
Trustees?
I move we adopt a resolution 1326 declaring vacancy for mayor. The board of trustees.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion has passed. Moving on to number 6, consideration of approving resolution 14-26, meeting decorum. Is there any staff report on the meeting decorum?
Yes, I made a couple of mistakes when I tried to type this. I wasn't looking at it. So so I've changed that into one.
Okay.
I'd like to add that I requested we bring something forward in this space because in the past several months, I think the tenor has changed greatly with the new board members, and the staying present board members we still have, and is being very respectful. In the past, we've had a lot of contention. Now, it is important, I think, for me to talk about this because contention is something that we need to learn how to manage through our decorum and how we work with each other. However, attempting to intimidate individuals or curtail speech by limiting time to speak is a potential infringement on First Amendment rights. And the city of Aurora and some of the other Front Range communities have been sued fairly recently for these types of activities. And I just wanted to remind us all as a body that we have 2 existing, I think, resolutions on decorum that were passed previously about how board members and mayors should act. And they fit within what we heard from the Sursa lawyer attorney last week. So there's nothing really new there, but to remind us that we act as a body, and that no one person on that body, including the mayor, can act outside of that. And that we as a town need to understand that it is a very real issue with towns reacting to what people are calling bad decorum, but overstepping their bounds and getting into amendments for getting into lawsuits that contend that they are violating First Amendment rights. So I just wanted to bring that up as a point of awareness for all of us, and that's why I asked the administrator to put together this resolution.
But in your comment, you're suggesting that we do away with this time limit?
No. I'm just saying that actions by other towns, like making time limits shorter or singling out individuals in meetings or limiting presence of individuals, has resulted in lawsuits. So those were merely examples. I'm not suggesting we change anything, Walter. I'm just really trying to bring it up as a point of information that those types of actions have gotten other communities into lawsuits when they were trying to address decorum issues. So in the spirit of maintaining our decorum and our requests that are printed on the wall here, I wanted to reiterate that we have these past resolutions and then this current one. And just to remind us all what the Sursa attorney reminded us last week, that we act as a body and that we don't act in ways that would potentially curtail people's First Amendment rights.
I think that is absolutely fair and good consideration. Keep our minds open and gotta remember at all times that the public perception of what we say is our own. We are 1/6 of a component And that is it. We don't have any special anythings as an individual. As a group, we're powerful. So I just being nice is a big thing anymore. Respectful. I appreciate this coming up and being brought out into the public again, because I think we need to be reminded to be fair and be nice and be kind. And we can work together and make everything good. Oh. Do we have any public comment or staff trustee comment on approving resolution 14-26? Mr. McCarthy?
Pete McCarthy in town. It's a little hard for me to listen to you all talk about a First Amendment, supporting the First Amendment, when my partner was attacked by one of your staff members who you all have oversight over as a means to intimidate me in my free speech. I've approached you, and actually you were the only person who actually sat down and talked to me about it. The rest of you have all avoided talking to me about it. So I really, when I see that be fair and be nice, I actually think you should take it down. I think you should put up, be transparent, have integrity, because that's what I think that this board has lacked. And I think when you got that letter from the town administrator claiming the things, that you should have taken it seriously. If somebody, a town staff was being threatened, his family was being threatened, then you should have looked into it. You should have cross-examined it. But you would have found very quickly if you cross-examined it that he was really full of it. And what he was really trying to do was attack my right to speak, which is what this board has been doing. You guys also, I watched the CIRSA, I was on the YouTube watching the CIRSA, and it said not to work independently, but yet the mayor sat there and wrote that I was libelous on truthful statements. And nobody has ever rebutted this. You're putting this forward, but all these things have happened and there's been no censure. There's been no speaking of it. I only get these 3 minutes and then the little buzzer beeps and no one ever asked me. I have a pile of evidence of wrongdoing that is still going on. You have a moratorium. I've submitted a moratorium for a robot moratorium, for surveillance on citizens, and been denied by your attorney, the same attorney who sat with one of your members in violation of the CIRSA rules and is still sitting on this meeting right now. And I've asked you, there's been court requests that have been, there's been records destroyed. There has been court requests denied, retractions without explanations, covering for the last town administrator. There is some serious violations still here. And I actually look at this, when I saw this made my blood boil. That you would put something forward like this without addressing any of the things, without giving me my time to speak. So I really don't appreciate this resolution at all. I don't think it's taking full accountability for your actions as a board. And I know that a lot of you weren't on the board, but this is your institution now and you're responsible for those things. So you should first have a special meeting and resolve these things. You should have an independent auditor on the court request, on the attorney's denial of my petitions, and then you should remove those people that have violated these things. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, is there any other public comment? Trustees?
I just want to say I did contact the chief of police to see if any of those allegations were valid, and we were. I don't know if you want to share what you shared with me.
As far as the allegations that were made, is that basically later?
Yes.
Yeah, the statements, so they were not found in no investigations into it.
So, I think the other question I would have is, in this case, would staff be able to say what would be the guidance to look at any of these things that the public has brought forward? I think where I'm personally a little bit at a loss of what you do about it. What I've read is that I have seen that actions like that have resulted in lawsuits in other communities. And so we have to be very careful about how we deal with these types of issues. But I'm not sure personally what type of administrative action or response would be considered normal or appropriate in this circumstance.
Right, that is a very good question. It seems like we do need to maybe talk with our attorney about how to proceed with something of this nature.
If that's warranted, again, I don't know what's normal or considered.
I would have no idea. I'd have to staff.
Yeah, I guess like,
The parking lot.
kind of off ours and I. Well, I got like a specific example, I think, the denial of the petitions, like I don't have the legal expertise, I feel, to review that. So what would be the avenue if we felt that to have that reviewed beyond what our town attorney said? Is there?
Apologize, I don't have background in what you're talking about.
Okay, sorry.
It's okay.
Throwing you in. So, is this a? Yeah, okay, so there were a couple of, Mr. McCarthy submitted some citizens initiatives. Is there students this time, right? Oh, like.
Yes, play. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. I just wanted to speak into what your request is. You know, one way that towns by policy can handle a citizen initiative that doesn't meet legal requirements, and by no means is it a personal thing for me. There are laws and there are certain interpretations of things that certain administrative policies that are just simply not within the citizen initiative right. But what certain towns have done is when a citizen initiative is rejected based on the advice of an attorney and or just a black and white statutory rule, is the board will look at that citizen initiated petition and determine whether or not they want to move forward with it as a board. So there's things that boards can do as legislative bodies that citizens cannot do, not being the legislative body. And so, you know, one thing, just as an example, is the town could tell staff that, hey, any rejected citizen initiated petitions need to come before the board so the board can determine whether or not they want to put forward that petition as a board and or pass legislation regarding that topic as a board. The other issue that you're discussing has to do with what do you do with complaints and citizen-based complaints and or citizen-based assertions of wrongdoing. And I'm dealing with another jurisdiction now wherein they're adopting a procedure for complaints, which is, you know, more complicated than I can go into now. But I would say that if you're interested in taking citizen complaints and doing your own investigation, there are ways to do that. But I would suggest that we have a policy in place or a procedure in place so that we're not just kind of dealing with each complaint as a case of first impression. Boards can determine whether or not they want to deal with citizen complaints and or how they deal with it, but having a standardized process is very important. And so, you know, I think that might be something, if the board is interested, to put as a topic in a work session. I've created a lot of processes based on CIRS's best practices, and I have some templates to start from that you could whittle down and or build up if you wanted to, for complaints from citizens. So, you know, just to address those two issues, it's not something the board has to just be helpless or have no means to address. I think those are, you know, probably the best ways to address those two issues.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's helpful.
That was very helpful.
In terms of the review of the rejected citizens initiatives, maybe we can put that in the parking lot to vote on potentially. Yeah, on a more personal note, I understand your frustration, Mr. McCarthy. I personally was sued in this lawsuit. The current anti-SLAPP laws that are on the books in Colorado were inspired by the lawsuit that was leveraged against me by the oil and gas industry in an attempt to silence my participation. So I get it. I testified in a congressional hearing on the matter. As an expert witness, I understand, and I think from my perspective, the appropriate authority who has the legal means and understanding of the law came to the appropriate conclusion, and which is why it didn't escalate further to criminal charges. And so beyond that, I'm not entirely sure what our role as a board is to address that. I know in my case, it had to go through the court process and it cost $50,000 for me, myself and my organization, which is very discounted. And it was ultimately withdrawn because it was a SLAPP suit. So yeah, I don't really know what other than, asserting our belief in the First Amendment and proceeding with caution moving forward, how we can address the previous issues based on our authority and also because those staff members are no longer here. So I'm happy to talk to you further. I think we have had a few conversations about the topic. And again, like very much a topic that is very close to my heart as someone who has been, I had the former Colorado Secretary of State try to leverage $300,000 worth of fines against me that the current Secretary of State ended up dismissing. So I'm very familiar with the means of trying to use the law to intimidate people. And I do feel very strongly about it. And I think kudos to our police chief for really understanding the law and the Constitution and upholding that as we're all sworn to do. Okay, so. Yes, Walter.
No, I'm just saying, let's get back to the agenda. Resolution 1426.
Yes.
We're discussing.
Yes, we were. So we have this on the parking lot, so we can revisit it. Yes, Ruben?
Jordan has changed it.
Yes, Jordan.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to address the same thing is from my knowledge, and I don't have very good knowledge of this, a member of Public Works was approached today that has nothing to do with that member of Public Works, but they were almost verbally assaulted about the way that the parks were being handled or something else around that issue. So just grouping that in with everything that happened, I just want to make sure that that doesn't continue to happen. But it was pretty much around the same thing.
Okay. So one of your Public Works guys was verbally attacked?
Yes, about the parks. About almost everything that was just talked about in this previous thing, about how they shouldn't be doing things the way that they are doing things. It was not going through the board the way that it should be.
Okay.
I don't have that much more information about it. I just know that it was not in a town meeting, but a member of the Public Works was addressed being told what to do by a citizen.
Okay, well, I know we have policies and procedures process in place for that.
Jordan, can you just let them know that there's public comment, that they can call in, that they can write in, and that that person can take any comment and deliver it to you? And that part of what we're trying to do here is distinguish between someone feeling threatened and someone else's expression of free speech, and that there's processes so that that speech can be made and it's protected right, and that we're trying to encourage people to communicate with each other in a fair, cooperative manner. And that we have.
Yes.
And just to remind your employee that there are processes that can be filled out, that they can tell that person where to put their comments so that we can put them on record.
Yes, correct. We do need to reiterate that with our employee, but it is, you know, I'm not the correct person that you need to talk to. You can contact town hall about any grievances you have about what is currently going on. But I do know that employee was a little bit shook up about that situation. For one thing, I don't think that was really fair to him for it to be that way. And he did reach out to a supervisor, which is our policy. But yes, if anybody has any grievances about anything, they should contact town hall. So the correct people could be contacted to deal with the situation instead of just the person in the field, because the person in the field is just acting on what the supervisor told them to go and do for that day.
Okay,
I've got one comment that, based on what Clay said, I do think the rejected petition should potentially come through the board. I don't think that should fall through the cracks today. And potentially the citizen complaint policy. So I don't know if we want a parking lot, both of those. I got the initiatives, but yeah, I just wanted to say that I definitely think the rejected petition should come in front of the board because people take time and effort and energy for an issue they consider valuable.
okay, that's something we could add to the parking lot and revisit in the future. I don't think that is.
Yeah, that's all I got.
Okay. Well. Since we have digressed a small amount, let us go back to consideration of approving resolution 1426.
You know, I've really brought this resolution forward so we could have a conversation. And I leave it up to the board if they would like to pass it. We have resolutions in place that state how we should act as a body and within the quorum, both with the public and between ourselves and with the public. So if there's no desire to pass another resolution on top of it, I'm okay with that. This was meant to have a discussion.
You're to be commended for wanting to be fair and open and civic. I make the motion. If we're done discussing, I move to adopt resolution 1426.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. We might need to extend our time again. Can we get through 3 or 4 items in 10 minutes? Can we do it? Let's progress. Okay, number 7, consideration of designating a primary and an alternate member to the Colorado Municipal League Policy Committee. And I believe Sam or Greg?
Sam.
I can report on it. Sam is stated as an alternate on that committee and Stefan was primary. With Stefan gone, we need another person. There's a lot of elected officials that sit on that committee, so if one of you are interested in that, they used to require trips to Denver to meet. Now they do it, I think, electronically as much as they can. And it's a large committee. I think there's 80 or 90 people on it. But you get lots of background on what's happening with legislation. You have the ability to provide input to the CML staff who does lobbying all the time so that they know where the cities and towns of the state are coming from and what their priorities are. So it's valuable to be a part of it and really learn about the legislative process.
What's the meeting schedule?
I don't know how often, but right now it's not very much. Once you get to the legislative session, it's far more intense.
They're usually, once the legislative session opens and stuff like that, there's standing meetings once a month. I've never seen there be more than one meeting a month. It does involve a little bit of time. But since it's virtual, it's fairly easy to follow along with, and a really good agenda and packet that goes into things about the bills they're gonna talk about and arguments, so. It's a good way to get your fingers on what other municipalities are thinking, maybe opening up your own mind to thinking of what actually can affect local rules, so. Is anybody interested? I'm interested. I feel like right now I've got my plate full.
Are you interested in it?
Not yet, maybe next time around.
I feel that my plate is too full at the moment. Maybe perhaps in the future. The time.
I was gonna say, if you guys are having a problem with it, it can always come back later, well, it'll be a little bit harder once the stuff gets going, but even if there's a second staff member. But it's kind of nice to have a primary and an alternate, just because we do have a vote on what the CML decides to go forth with, whether they're gonna oppose something, push for amendments or. Things like that, so it's an important voice to have on the committee, whether it's coming from an elected official or staff. So, and I'm happy to continue serving on it. I enjoy it, I learn a lot from it, but it's always nice to back up, just in case I can't be there for some reason or.
I'd recommend that you name Sam as the primary and then just think about who get the second position.
I could alternate occasionally if need be, that's not a big deal, but you don't want to commit the full.
As an alternate, I attended every meeting, but that's because I'm a nerd when it comes to the law, and so I like hearing what was going on. You don't have to, I could let you know if there's gonna be for some reason I wasn't either, so.
Yeah, I can do that.
And then you still have the option of popping in if you decide that you're a law nerd too.
I move that to appoint Samir Better, town clerk, as our primary. What's the acronym? CML policy committee with LA trustee Brown as alternate.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Next item up, consideration of designating a backup chair until a new mayor is appointed. I have surgery, my hip replaced next board meeting. So I will not be able to attend, we need someone to chair. In case something like this might happen again, I anticipate being here 2 weeks after surgery's done. I'll be able to come in.
Once we have a mayor, we'll have a mayor pro tem again, so that'll be covered, because we need somebody in the interim, just in case. It's been a weird year, guys.
That's interesting. Can we
ask trustee Hunter?
That's
what happened. She's
on the class.
Script.
Yeah, she probably doesn't need the script.
Yeah, she's good on the parliamentary rules, I feel like she's on top of that.
Yeah, she was who I thought. Yes, ma'am.
The one thing to point out, though, is that we do have a resolution that says that a meeting cannot be chaired from Zoom. It has to be a person that's.
So we need to know if she's gonna be here or not, is the point.
Yeah. So. Is that on the same day as the water?
It's the 11th. Yeah.
No,
that's
that's happening on the work session day, work session, STR. Let's see, STRs, to that. Okay. So you can't nominate her because we're not sure if she's gonna be physically present.
I wonder if it would be okay if you made a motion allowing me to like talk to different members of the board and see if somebody would volunteer to be a backup for the next meeting. Sure.
I would move to instruct town staff to contact trustees and find a volunteer.
Greg, you can tell me. Second. Aye.
All those in favor?
Say aye.
Motion we second, I'm sorry. We're running out. Do we have a motion and a second? Okay, all in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Passes.
And consideration of setting a special meeting for August 5th, 2026 to select an executive search firm. This is
I can make this one real fast.
Sam's.
So once the RFP closes, the RFP will be distributed to the scoring committee. And which is gonna be the 2 trustees and then the staff members who were selected for the hiring committee. It'll be scored, it'll be in your packet so you guys can review it, there'll be a recommendation made. Provided everybody agrees, it could very easily be a 15-minute meeting. But it's just so we can actually get the executive search firm going as quickly as possible. Since our being interim administrator doesn't want to stay with us forever and ever and ever and ever and ever.
Which, we would keep it open.
So, and it's just to move things along, so, but everything will be scored, you'll still be able to see all the RFPs as well as the scoring of all the people who do the thing. So it shouldn't take too long, and it's just to keep things open.
Okay. We have a motion to. Yes, Christina?
Why can't we keep him?
You talk to his wife.
Son is great, transparent, intelligent and brilliant and hands-on and
Funny.
great with public works, funny, like, can't we keep him? Can you push this back a little bit, because we're always doing so well with interim town meeting. Then we get to and we don't do well, so I just wonder if anybody's asked him how long he wants to stay there. And based on his decision, can't you just push back?
Meeting in town, my comment on this is, I was walking down the street, I saw a public works director flyer. We can hire a public works director like that. We can also hire a town administrator the same way. I watched the Hotchkiss as they did an executive, they went and got an executive search firm. They got 2 candidates. We already had 2 candidates, really good candidates. Before we even got an executive search firm, they got 2 candidates. One person had no experience as a town administrator. One person had experience with a town of 150 people. They hired the person with no experience. When I got up here and said this, I don't know, a month ago, I was told very different group of people now, but that's impossible. We can't run our own town. We can't find our own town administrator. I really gotta say, like, spending $30,000 on robots, $50,000 on cameras that nobody wanted, $10,000 on an HR manual from an Indiana firm that were friends with Step and Wind. Do the town a favor and do this work and find a town administrator. It could save the town $20,000, replace the merry-go-round that the public works knocked over and never replaced for the children, fix the drinking fountain, leave the bathrooms open. Don't waste $20,000 on an executive search firm. I will help you do the executive search firm. I have put together on my website. I went and looked at all of the RFPs, all the towns, what they've gotten out of this thing, the mechanisms that they do it. I built it, all these tools. I will give them to you all for free. I'm making all these available to all statutory towns in Colorado. under my nonprofit called Transparent Towns. You don't need to spend this $20,000, save the money. So I'm urging you all to stop with the groupthink and just keep spending, and let's take control of our government. Let's go find our next town administrator and not rely on other people to do it. They didn't get very many candidates in Hotchkiss, so we're just gonna go back to the same process that's totally broken. There's 10 towns with empty town administrators. The whole process is broken. Split the job up, have a town administrator be a part-time job. Get someone running the water company, get someone running the trash company, split these things up. And stop spending this kind of money. Thank you.
We need to extend the time.
A motion to, go ahead.
Yeah, break or table the last agenda item.
Table the last agenda item.
Is that what we're discussing right now?
So that's what you're discussing right now.
Right now, but we need to do this if it's
If
gonna
you
be
can
on the.
extend 10 minutes, so.
Okay, so we just need
I'll move
to.
to stay in 10 minutes. Okay.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Okay, 10 minutes to 10:12. Okay. Now,
Ethel Short. Right now, there's so much upheaval here. We don't have a permanent mayor. We have people that can't even volunteer to substitute for the next meeting. I think that we find out how long Administrator Sunday would be willing to stay here. And if he would be willing to stay until the end of the year, then that gives you breathing room to find a mayor. And to actually see if Pete's suggestion to help you find an administrator is a viable one for us. There's nothing that says that we have to do this right now and have to have it done in the next 2 weeks. If Administrator Sun is willing to hang in there with us. I agree that with Christina that he's phenomenal. Why can't we keep him? And I understand and respect the fact that that's not his part of his agenda. But if he can help us get through this period, then why don't we try to take advantage of that, give ourselves a little breathing space?
thank you.
Yeah, and there's a general question. How does this affect the timeline if we push it back?
Well, it can affect the timeline quite a bit. It's. If you want to hire someone, it's a process you need to keep moving so that you can get that done.
And have you been part of or seen examples of towns successfully doing a search without an executive search firm? I know it was a request for the previous mayor to support us with that time. Have you seen that happen in a different way?
Yeah, I managed the process in Georgetown, but it took up most of my time. I did that. So you get to drop all the other things you're doing, make that your priority. It's kind of like the thing of doing construction projects in the house.
Well, so the agenda item that we're voting on today is just to have the special meeting to review the proposals. And
to hear a recommendation from the committee.
Okay, and we could choose to not go with any of them. That's an option.
And so we could also keep the process that way.
But yeah. And then at least we see what the proposals are and what they're presenting.
Benchmark the progress up till now and proceed accordingly.
Seems like it makes logical sense. That's a calm, steady, methodical approach and keep the forward momentum.
Yeah, we're not signing any contracts on the 5th.
No.
We're not signing any checks on the 5th.
No, we're not making any
Just
decisions.
working on getting information.
Getting information.
You may be making.
Me.
We have a opportunity to make.
Me.
To be clear, you may be.
Well, what do you think, trustees?
Settled as that, we're having a work session.
It's
The 4th.
Oh.
fourth, and then the fifth is a special meeting. Okay. special meeting to select an executive search firm.
And then. So we're, I'm sorry, I put my computer away, which was premature of me. What is the motion in front of us?
Consideration of setting a special meeting for August 5th to select an executive search firm.
We do need a time that works best for all of you.
Okay,
Uh,
and time.
how does everyone feel about 6 or 6:30?
Works.
Walter?
Yes.
Okay.
Six.
Six. Okay. I move to set a special meeting August 5th for the review and selection, potential selection of an executive search firm for administrator at 6 p.m.
So second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Passed. Well, we have this ad hoc short-term rentals committee, and I think we pretty much talked about everything going on in the short-term rentals committee and where we're going. Now that we've had limitations removed, we could maybe get some work done. So if there is nothing else, then we'll go on the last page, make sure we do everything. Yes. The time is now 10:08 and I adjourn the meeting.
That's the fourth of us.